and welcome to End of the World News. I'm your host, Ben. Today we have an awesome conversation with my friend Sethkicklighter.
Hello.
He just released a new book called Spirit Realm Shenanigans. If you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your journey, what led you to Christ, let's kick this off. And thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, no, let's go. I was a agnostic atheist for most of my teenage years out of being raised in the church. And, once your mom gets one too many divorces, they don't really treat you real good at some of these places, apparently. Put a bad taste in my mouth and, shouldn't let a bad group of Christians make you hate Christianity. But it did because I was an angsty teen. And then I ended up having a unexpected out of body experience at one point in my semi between dream state and going to sleep, and I said, "Oh, I have a soul. That's crazy. I didn't know that." And it led me on this path of reading an insane amount of books in the New Age Gnostic field. I read like raw material first and read the whole series and straight through. And then I read all these channeled books, Seth material because he had the same name as me, and I trusted that stupid demon. And then I ended up reading a ton of reincarnation evidence lore and what else? Astral travel stuff, which is what we're talking about today, holistic healing methods, and cross-examine them in the manuals like very deeply. And I read all these sorts of New Age Gnostic stuff, barely any Christian stuff, because I was like turned off from it, and it made sense to me at the time. And then over time, I saw these contradictions in them. In the lore themselves and the reincarnation lore and all these little sketchy things that just seemed deceptive and, like a psyop from the spirit realm. And eventually I came to the conclusion that that's exactly what was going on, and it brought me to Christianity very hardcore, and now I'm a radical extremist with it, and I think that's the move. And I compiled this book over a lot of work over 8 months, Spirit Realm Shenanigans, an unhinged rant exposing the psychic fabrications of discarnate dweebs and Nephilim nitwits. And yeah, it's embedded with comedy and a little bit of inappropriate language because I'm a youngster and I wanted to, cater too much to the youth, and because I'm trying to, convert the New Agers and Gnostics. That's who this is primarily for.
Amen.
Yeah, and they need it more. And for Christians, it's great, like, spiritual psyop, reverse wargaming information that you can use to really see things in a deeper light. And I'm young, so people wouldn't really take it seriously from hearing me just say these things. So I'm making big claims in my presentation today, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah. Oh, and also I should say, find me at my username Sethlehem, Bethlehem with a Seth, on Instagram with an underscore at the end, and then on X it's Sethlehem. And my link tree is in that bio on both of those, and that link tree has everything. Has my book. It's on Amazon, PayHip. Audiobook is free on YouTube and Spotify. It's 34 hours. I'm sorry. And there's funny voices in it, and then there's all my podcast links and everything in there. So find me there.
That's awesome that you have an audio book for people who don't know how to read, such as myself. So
which is most people. Yeah.
Which is most people in the conspiracy world, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I wanted to make it accessible, and I made it fun. And the voices I used, because I'm mocking a lot of people using excerpts from sources, and I use funny voices for everybody I'm mocking. So it's really appropriate in that sense. So yeah, it's a fun read, regardless of if you agree with it or not. But it's a cohesive narrative. We'll get into that in just a minute. Yeah. Do you have any questions, brother?
Well, I just think it's very interesting that you got into Gnosticism, the spiritual realm, astral travel, and then it brought you full circle to Christianity. And I think this conversation is pressing during this time because we have the government now with the likes of Joe Rogan, controlled op, pushing this whole DMT world on everybody. And regardless, if you're listening, regardless of what you think about psychedelics or the spiritual realm, if we should have access to it, the dangers of entering it, so on and so forth. I think we should first, take pause and think about why is the government pushing this? Like that's my first, all of a sudden I'm always a suspect of it, but when they started pushing it, I was like, wait a minute, something's not right about this. And they use this stuff for MK Ultra. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. Take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, no, they use characters too who they build up trust with in the public sphere, like Joe Rogan, for example, who's, people are seeing through it a little bit as of late, standing behind Trump now. But you see like Luna with the UFO stuff and Tim Burchett and all these people who become like, oh, we're in the government, but we're like the good guys, and they get this good press. And I think they're all part of it, and they're more convincing than others, some of them. But that's what I see whenever I see these controlled narratives get dispelled by the right guys in government, the white hats or whatever you want to call them. Anyway, so yeah, my presentation, my whole core theory is it's pretty. I can prove it to people pretty quickly, but it's big claims. So I'm going to use a lot of sources today and read excerpts, which are in my book but compiled from other sources. Which today we're mostly focusing on astral travel. Like the sources I'm using is mostly the trilogy of Robert Monroe, who is the top astral traveler of all time as far as like book sales and influence goes, and he created the Monroe Institute, which is basically Harry Potter psychic wizard school for remote viewing and astral travel and contacting entities and all that stuff. It's very new age, and they're where you go where you want to get trained for psychic abilities, which is totally potentially merging with demons and them giving you the power that is not inherent to you. Who knows? That's what I lean towards. But so I'll be reading sources, but analysis and all that stuff, and they're pretty fun. So it's going to get really psychedelic, but my whole point is I'm getting into and Kurt Leland, he's the other guy, his book Otherwhere. I do like 80 pages combined on all 4 of these books as a breakdown, plus a few other sources. So my whole theory is that astral travel specifically, all of the realms you're going to, quote unquote, are basically controlled simulations where the environment is completely fabricated like a lucid dream, and they're controlled like consciously. This is not technology. They're controlled consciously by the demons or guides facilitating it. They claim to be guides or a certain type of ascended spirits that are helping you, or your own godhead, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. And whoever they are, the process is the same. They're deceiving you, and they're caught lying and giving different people different lore that doesn't really match up with each other. And then they fall it under the topic of, oh, well, you're just perceiving it differently because it's all consciousness. So the way you see it or the way things are catered to your subconscious building of the world. And it's like, that's their excuse for everything that's different. But it's like, no, that doesn't add up in all ways because it doesn't make sense. So I think it's all simulation. And I think the simulation ability is, I like to make the point that if they can do this for astral travel, and when I say the world is built like it's structured, it totally is. Every visual, your sight, the sounds you hear, the entities you meet are sock puppets essentially for these entities. And if they can do this, I think remote viewing is nothing. It's all impression and download based and a little bit of visuals and other senses, but it's mostly information download, which, by the way, in these astral realms, you have consistent intuition and perceptions and thoughts coming to your head that they plainly say are not theirs and that they're downloaded into them. And they just trust their sources. They trust whoever they meet in the astral as being a positive, helpful entity, usually themselves from the future outside of time as a godhead. That's usually who the entities are half the time. So, yeah, my whole point is I think that all psychic ability, psychic-derived information, whether it be remote viewing, many NDEs, I'm not going to say all of them, a lot of dreams that are very vivid and you contact entities, mediumship in general, where it's just talking, it's much easier. All of these psychic information sources, which are reached via divination, not like God choosing a prophet, it's them seeking it via forbidden knowledge, getting divination sources. Out-of-body travel is the most immersive. I think it's all fake or controlled information, and it's very elaborately done. And the only way this can be done is if the demons that exist on the other side are a hive mind sharing instant access of information like a Borg, basically, and that's how they carry out these things, because otherwise it wouldn't really be happening to the elaborate degree it is. Do you have anything for me, brother?
Yes, I have a couple questions.
Go for it.
One, I think you brought up, you just brought it up how, in the past, God had chose prophets to deliver this information to give these abilities to. I mean, if you read the book of Revelations, clearly John's spirit goes somewhere.
Yeah.
God talks to a lot of these prophets in an auditory manner, and we see that in scripture. So would you say that there are people today, and I believe there are, but do you think there are people today with that God-given gift, or do you think it's all manufactured?
Yeah, I would say there is. And I'm not going to claim any names that I think so, because people claim it all the time, like, oh, they're in regular contact with God, and they're absolutely not. It's demons masquerading. So you have to be careful and judge it by its fruits. But, and we'll get into it later because part two, I basically would, if we do that, I would break down how Dan Duval, specifically the Christian deliverance minister, healer, is basically getting deceived by demons in a very elaborate process of his healing methods. And the demons are just laying off pressure whenever they heal you from the problem they're causing, and it costs you buying into the channeled information you're accessing. It's a good trade-off for them because it drifts you from true Christianity if you are a Christian, and they have New Age practices, which are the same thing, but they have incompatible lore, which can't coexist. And that's what my whole second theory is, which I was going to get into anyway. But so I think it does happen, yes, but I do believe there's a lot of fake entities who claim to be God, Jesus. They definitely masquerade as Jesus. That is admitted often. And anybody who thinks they can't do that or won't do that is very off. And that's what we need to keep in mind when we hear these people say they're talking and even channeling Jesus at times, which is what Dan Duval claims. And he channels angels and gets his methodology from them. So it's same practice as New Agers.
Yeah, we should not be channeling angels. I think the Bible's clear.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit, right?
No, exactly. So I think it happens, but they are going to be, more humble than your average person generally. And there's some people who think that they're chosen by God to be astral intercessors in the astral realm, and they think that God chose them for this. And when they tell how they know it's God who chose them for this, when they were 8 years old, some of these people, which doesn't sound right, they will tell the story, and it sounds like it could easily be a demonic deception masquerading, the way they describe it. And then they go to the astral realm, and it's all fake realms, and they're going and praying for people and dealing with negative entities. And then, they're just giving you a Christian version of the astral realm, calling it the second heaven if you want, and making you think you're blessed by God. But really, you're just convincing other Christians who believe you to go pursue these things and call it biblically okay when it's divination like anything else. Just they will cater to your belief system. So just a big note there.
Then one more question. You say that this DMT realm or this astral travel realm is a simulation fake, right?
Yeah.
How do you think it's created? Who created it? And is your spirit actually going into this thing?
Good questions. So who created it? Well, it's not like it's a designated place where they're taking you as much as it is just individually catered simulations, which they have a whole system for this that they cater to everybody. But they change up the details here and there for different people and different belief systems. So that's a no. Are you really going there? And then you're in some consciousness, box where they're simulating everything, or are they coming into you and doing it to you? I don't know for sure. I know you can leave your body. Like, people will have NDEs and they'll be floating above their body and they'll get data of what was happening while they were dead, and they'll be right there. And I think that's real, and I think that happens. And I think when I used to go out of body, which I did a bunch for a while, I didn't go into deeper realms often. When I did, it was very short-lived, and I got freaked out because I felt wrong about it. Like, in my soul, I felt like I gotta get out of here. Before any entities came and really approached me directly. They're always there, but I was already aware of spiritual deception when I was doing this stuff, and I knew that these things happened, but I wasn't aware of it was all a deception and all bad. I thought if I have a good high vibration, I can find the right ones, but that was not what happened. So I'm trying to stay on topic, I guess. I would say that you can go out of body and be in the real time zone, which is, floating around the real world, but they can also generate what you believe will be that. And then you'll see things generating in ways that don't match up with the real world. And this is what they call the second heaven, where it's close to the real world, but things are slightly off and slightly different. And I think that's all simulation as well. So I'm trying to remember what you asked. You said something about, are you going there? What was that third part? I know there was something.
I think that was it right there. So
okay, yeah, no, I get off topic really quick. So
no, it's all good. It's all good. So let's move on forward, sir.
Yeah. So y'all got the 1,000-foot overview pretty much down. So I'm gonna start reading excerpts from Monroe's second book right here, and this is probably the flattest admission and straight direct admission of what I'm talking about being possible. And then the second excerpt I'm going to read is going to be the longest one, so bear with me, but it's very correlated and they're in order in a good way. So
wait, who's Monroe real quick?
So Robert Monroe, I call Bob's too much, so I'll switch it up. But he's the guy who started Monroe Institute. He's the #1 astral traveler as far as success and popularity goes, and most influential. And he died a bit ago in the 90s or 2000s. But he had 3 books, and they were the best, most popular books in astral travel. And I do a complete breakdown on each one, like 20 pages each in my book, because it's the most revealing data to this vision theory. So, but there's plenty more outside of astral travel stuff. So that's what the whole book covers. So yeah, Robert is in the astral, right? And he's discussing a method of training that his guides put him through that he's been dealing with for years. And he calls he's talking about his guides, and then he says a favorite and quick learn forever method of theirs was simulation. It was based on their ability to create and place into a human consciousness, mind, or an earth type situation so real and so overwhelming that I could not tell reality from illusion. I do not know the limits of such simulation talent or technology, nor do I know the extent to which they employ the technique. It may only be in my particular case, but I doubt it. The potentials of its application, in other ways, begs for broad speculation. In my own pattern, it was usually applied as an instant cleanup of minor emotional patterns that blocked or distorted my clarity of perception or my stability. Usually I was unaware of such dysfunction. They would note it and offer to take care of the problem. I would be informed that the lesson was about to take place with my consent. Yet once in the simulation, it became absolutely and totally real. And I lived it. If I did not come up with the desired action, the simulation would be repeated until I did. Even in the repetition, I couldn't break through the reality of the simulation, yet once the training sequence was completed, I then knew what it was for. To pose questions about motives seemed irrelevant, or perhaps I didn't want to endanger the good thing I had going for me. So that's admitting immediately the ability is real, that the guides, if they're guides actually, they do have this ability. And that is, my whole half of my theory right there. The rest of it is saying, no, it's all fake. Even the realms they visit that the guides claim are real. And I like to start out with that because it gives you a quick overview saying he got lost in the fake simulation that he knew was a simulation, was told. Like he would forget it's a simulation because it's so immersive and so real that he felt like it was real life. And you'll hear more about that soon in the second excerpt. But, and he also says, posing questions about motive seemed irrelevant. He didn't want to endanger the good thing he had going with his connection to the astral realm. So that's him saying, yeah, something might be off here. This is a little sketchy and this could be overused, but I don't want to think about it because I'm having too much fun. That's kind of crazy, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to read that one first and then move on to Leland's stuff because it's funny because Monroe doesn't talk about that ever again. He has 3 books. That is the only paragraph in the entire 3 books where he discusses the simulation concept, and never again. And I think it's because he knows how it comes off and how it could potentially imply certain things. And he doesn't talk about his experiences in it either. He just says it happens. Now, this other guy, Leland, he does talk about his experiences in the simulation and is also admitting that it's a thing. So it's not like it's just Monroe saying it, which is also the top guy anyway. So we should probably take his word for it. Now, Leland, in his book Otherwhere, he's talking about the specific simulation he was put in one time, and he gets into great detail about it and how ridiculous it gets. So he says that he's put in the simulation, and they're saying they're going to test him, and for whatever reason, and they are his guides, his overseers, he calls them, and they say he has to escape this astral simulation realm, and more metaphorically than literally because it's all fake anyway. So he gets transported instantly to what he describes as like 1600s Italy, probably like a Renaissance vibe. And he's in a castle, and in that castle, there's no door, so it's not just like a copy and paste of a real place. It's, they can morph things however they want perfectly. So he's in this castle with no door, and he says, I looked down at the drawing table where I found a complex perspective study of a cathedral drawn in ink on a piece of parchment. The sketch was in the style of the Renaissance. Could this be a past life, one in which I'd been an artist or architectural draftsman? So, for starters, he's already so immersed in this realer than reality type simulation that he thinks, oh, is this a past life memory? Which is stupid because you don't have autonomy in a memory, but they like to break the fourth wall there a couple times throughout this lore, and we'll get into it. But so he's moving around, has complete autonomy, and because he's getting lost in it. And I think, well, actually, I know they can dim and affect your lucidity levels to make you dumber and affect what you do. And we'll get into that, why that matters in a minute. Do you have anything for me?
Well, real quick, what I also noticed, the first conclusion he came to was, is this a past life?
Yeah.
Saying about the reincarnation cycle, trap maybe, which goes along the Gnostic lines.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it's programmed in everything they do, the reincarnation stuff. Whether it's a positive New Age light or the prison planet thing, they tend to get into both as if they have good excuses for them. But he continues and he says, as instructed, I looked for clues. A quick scan showed me that there was no door. Perhaps it was concealed like a trapdoor. After all, I seem to be a prisoner of sorts. So he then says, I looked down at the drawing table again. The architectural rendering was gone. In its place, I found a piece of typing paper turned sideways. On it was a child's crayon drawing of a landscape, a bright blue sky with a smiling sun and puffy white clouds, green grass, and a poorly drawn cow grazing by the metal gate. Before I had a chance to ask myself what such a drawing was doing in the Renaissance, however, I found myself inside of it. A real-life figure projected into a cartoon. A wind of colors flew by, the sun set, and the crescent moon lying on its side rose up. The moon had a big nose and was wearing a nightcap. A music box began to play Beautiful Dreamer, and the moon started to sing along in the voice of Frank Sinatra. A chorus line moved, however. No, a chorus line of five-pointed stars whirled and jigged between verses, occasionally chiming in. The brown cow never moved, however. It remained frozen mid-chew, grass dangling from its mouth, faintly pathetic. The sun and the moon seemed to be attached to a revolving wheel that kept spinning faster and faster. Day alternated with night so rapidly that they blurred together, flickering like a strobe light. And then, just as suddenly as I'd been whisked into the child's drawing, I was outside again, seated at the drawing table. The architectural rendering had reappeared. So that's the kind of control and goofy stuff we're talking about here that they're capable of.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Was this brought on by astral travel in a natural setting, or was this brought on by infusing DMT into his body?
This has nothing to do with drugs.
Okay, this is all astral travel.
Yeah, we're actually going to get to DMT lockout later. That's coming near the end because that's a whole thing I have an explanation for that falls in line. But no, this is all, he's in the astral, and then while he's in the astral, in a real realm, quote unquote, his guides are like, hey, we're going to put you in a simulation now, and then boom, instant shift. And everything you see here, when a new place comes about, instant shift, everything's generated perfectly. There's no error, there's no glitching. They have mastered it, and we'll get into more of that later. But yeah, this excerpt is the longest. We still got a little bit more, but it gets crazy. So he says, the study vanished, and I found myself wandering through a desert. With a clarity of logic that startled me, controlling thoughts here, I resolved to seek out the witches and warlocks who must have been responsible for this bizarre change of scenery. He knows his guides are doing it, but he forgets and thinks it's some witchcraft from some other entities. And then he says, perhaps they could tell me how to escape this reality in which I've been imprisoned. I walked and walked. The desert remained featureless as it had been when I first arrived. I was lost, but that didn't stop me. I kept on walking anyway. Suddenly, my perspective shifted. I seemed to be seeing myself from far away, looking down at myself as I walked. The desert planet I was walking on was so small that it spun beneath my feet with every step. I was wholly responsible for its rotation. I panicked. I began to feel that I would be trapped in this barren reality, wherever and whatever it was, forever. Without transition, I found myself back in the architect's study. So, yeah, things are getting wild, and they're just kind of messing with him at this point is what I think is happening to get him to, trip balls. And he, again, after all that happens, forgets why he's there in the castle, and he's getting lost in it thinking it's like a real place and he's in a real world, and he's really living this life. That's how much they can mess with your, thought process. So then his guide comes in the human form of a woman and opens a trap door and then comes in the room and then says to him, let me ask you something, the instructor said. Where on earth are you able to walk through a crayon drawing where the sun smiles at you and the moon and stars are singing? Your study contains bits and pieces from every historic period in the last 500 years. We threw in everything but the kitchen sink to get you to realize this was a dream, and we finally had to put that in too. All you had to do was realize the utter impossibility of everything you were perceiving and tell yourself you must be dreaming. So here's what's happening. They are basically messing with him and then making him dumber, which they can do, and then saying, you messed up. All you had to do was figure out this was a dream. Now, this is important because you're like, why do they care so much about you being able to be lucid enough to figure out, have cognizance in this astral realm, fake or not? So this is important because I don't cover it in the book much, but his guides do tell him, they tell him that multiple times, the most important thing you can do in your waking life is go into the astral and get better at being lucid and being cognizant and traversing the astral realm, gaining skills and, mastering the ability to traverse the realms and understanding it, mapping it out. They say that because they say when you die, you're going to be super confused on what to do, where to go, which is not what they present in other ways, by the way. But they say this, and they say, so going to the astral is the most important thing you can do. More important than any moral progression of any kind. They don't even mention that stuff. It's crazy. They just say, go to the astral. And they even tell him, they say, we chose you years ago to do this work. We basically came to you and we got you out of body, and we wanted you to get out of body so you could write this book and share the word with the world. They wanted to use him as an asset. They tell him that, and they said, we did the same thing with your hero, Bob Monroe, which Leland is a contributor to Monroe Institute. I don't know if I mentioned. They're connected. He's just less popular, so this is more underground stuff, which is important. So yeah, that's what they say is the most important thing you can do, and I think that's interesting.
Well, it's also interesting. I'm with you. He's like, the most important thing you can do is enter the astral realm. And what is our government right now telling us when it comes to drug addiction? The most important thing you can do is take ibuprofen or DMT. Go into this realm, whether it's real, fake, simulated, and go mess around with these entities. That's going to solve the problem.
These ancient intelligent entities, which are playing you like a fiddle, man. And then they say that, and it's funny because everybody, when they have these trips, and whether it be any psychedelics, really, how many people do you hear do these trips and come back and say, I just had this like understanding at that point, and I just knew like the universe is love and God's all love, and like we just got to love each other, man. They'll say the hippie stuff, and they'll say they have this knowing, this strong intuitive download, and they won't recognize it as an externally impressed upon thing, but they're pushing like a new age Gnostic kind of viewpoint on people in these psychedelic states, and it's no accident.
Oh yeah, and I also remember back in the day, I was listening to a podcast about the spiritual realm and shamans and stuff like that. And they said, that's how we communicate with the spiritual realm, right? But what they said was interesting. They said all these entities in there are tricksters.
Yeah.
They call them trickster entities in the spiritual realm.
Mm-hmm. No, they plenty of shamans admit to that. A lot of ex-shamans, because usually if you're still in it, you're not doing it anymore, or you have a different viewpoint. But I've studied the shaman lore, and there's connections to that and the healing practices I talk about in a second part. They rebrand it for different cultures. They westernize it for some people and give different lore to the more third world type practitioners and occultists. So they definitely cater to that. Now I'm gonna keep this thing rolling because I got plenty to get to. So keeping on the simulation concept, just that's good to start out with because everything else now can be seen through that filter. Now, this next thing we're talking about is Monroe's book, where he uses the word rote, R-O-T-E, and a rote, according to him, is a download. It's a memory packet, information etherically transferred, not physical, obviously. It's, any astral entity can give any astral entity one of these rotes, and it can be usually just instant knowing of a complex thing. Instead of just conversing back and forth telepathically in the astral, you can just go, here, take this, and now you understand so many things at once that's very complex. And you might not remember it all, but you'll, for a moment, know. And that is what a rote is. And sometimes a rote can be a simulation, which they admit to. So one time in Monroe's book, he's in the astral and he's talking out with his new friend who's a spirit from another planet in another maybe dimension. He's coming to Earth because he's like, I want to check this place out and reincarnate here maybe. So he's another alien, but he's a spirit. And this alien spirit's name is Z-55/Lu. I don't know if they have the same alphabet or if this is a translation, but it's kind of lazy. It's silly. Now, this Lu character, he is trying to explain to Bob how he died on his home planet physically and then came to find this place. And instead of just telling him, he gives him a rote. And in this rote, boom, instant transfer. And then now Bob is in a physical body, or seemingly physical, on this planet, and it's similar to Earth, he says, but it's not like, it's pretty weird, it's different, but it's similar enough to where you're like, yeah, it's the same vibe. And he's walking around, has autonomy, so he's not reliving a memory of this entity because he has autonomy. So we don't know if he's in his body or another body, but he blends in with everybody else, so he seems to be in somebody else's body. And while he's there, he's having like a few awkward interactions with people, trying to get a feel for the place, and then he deals with some military type who's bothering him for identification or something. And then this is all irrelevant because moments later, all of a sudden, a giant tsunami comes and wipes them all out and kills everybody. And then Bob has a traumatic death that feels real, for a moment at least. And then he wakes up into the regular astral where he was, instant shift. And then the guy Lou's like, yeah, that's how I died. And I'm like, why did you need to traumatize me like that? Why didn't you just tell me you died in a tsunami, dog? Go ahead, the brother.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah,
And real quick, thank you, Mark Glenn, for that donation. God bless. But so what you're telling me here, this guy went astral traveling, and while he was in the astral world, they then created a separate simulation for him, told him that, and brought him into that simulation. So he was a simulation within a simulation within.
All right. Well, I'm going to answer that question in just a moment because I was getting to that anyway.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you a quick thing, and then I'll explain what I think is going on. So the next thing I like to talk about is this thing I call roteception. So it is, yes, what you're talking about, where I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's very convoluted. And it's important, but not necessary right now. But basically, the short version is this entity that Bob meets in second book. He names BB, the letters BB. I don't know why, it's stupid and annoying to use. And then his friend AA, and those are the two characters. And they're alien spirits from another planet, and they're very goofy and teenage-like, and they're corny as hell, honestly. But
do they say what they look like?
No, they're just like spirits. They don't really have a form. They're like light beings kind of thing. But they're from a planet, and it's a really goofy-sounding planet, the way they describe it. It's silly. But this character, BB, is meeting Bob in the astral, and he's upset. And Bob's like, why are you upset? And he's like, here, I'll show you. Here's a rope. Boom, he's reliving BB's memory. No autonomy this time. And he's living it out like his memories. So it is a simulation, but he has no autonomy. You know, think of past life memories or SSP memories accessed, no autonomy, right? But they can control which is happening. So he's reliving this memory, quote unquote, of this BB character. And in the memory, BB's on an astral tour bus coming across the galaxy to literally tour with a tour guide and everything. And they're like going, speaking to everybody like, hey, this place is Earth and this is what's going on here. And they have a brochure and everything, which is a rote brochure, which is given to Bob later and ends up being a whole Gnostic origin story, which is disinformation, and it's hilarious the way they got it. Off topic though, but BB he's now reliving this memory as BB, where his friend AA is going to incarnate on Earth because he likes the sound of it. He's talking about it like it's a roller coaster ride. He's like, I want to try that out. And since there's no time in this realm, they can go live a life and come right back. So that's what he does, AA. And BB's like, no, I don't want to wait for you. This is annoying. He's like, I just want to go home. And he's acting like an angsty teen the whole time. And then AA comes out of a life after living a full life, and then is like, here, check out what I did, and gives BB, which is Bob reliving it, a rote. And I'm sorry this is convoluted, but now you have Bob going into this extra deeper layer where now he's reliving AA's memories as a human through the eyes of BB, through this rote, going back. And then you think, okay, well, this is roteception. You're going one into another, right? That's what people think when they hear this. And they're trying to make it sound like, oh, confident or consciousness is infinite, and we can just keep going, and it's like a Russian doll. It can go on forever. Just like, the whole Inception movie with dreams. Now, I don't buy it. It's a psyop. What's happening is they're just switching to another thing. And because they've mastered this ability to control every detail of it and your autonomy or not, even when you have autonomy, it fluctuates, and we'll get into that in a minute. But it is not going deeper. It is just switching. But they can make you think whatever they want. So I hope that answers your question in a not super complicated
And then
way.
one more question real quick about this Bob guy.
Yeah.
Is this something that Bob had practiced over the years and learned how to do this, or was this gift given to him, since his birth?
Great question. He actually never did this until I think he was 42 or in his 40s, and he had an experience after like having a really calm or meditative state. He was in like the woods or something one time alone. And then after that, he has entities, reach out to him and pull him out of body. Literally, he says he's getting pulled out of body, which I've been pulled out of body. It's kind of crazy, but you can pull back and stop it usually. But it depends on what you're doing. Calling on Jesus definitely helped a couple times, but he was not born with it. It ended up developing over time, and then once he gets out of body once, he was like, I want to do that again. Boom, consent granted. Additionally, which allows it to get deeper. And some people describe taking months or even a year plus to get out of body when they're actively trying to meditate and do the process. It took me like 4 months after I had my first one to really practice it and do it. And then after that, it gets easier and easier and easier. Sometimes slow, sometimes really quick. And it seemed to Bob, he progressed pretty fast. But you got to there's layers to why that's happening, and I'm not gonna claim to know every little detail of it, but I do have my thoughts on it. It'll take a tangent forever. But it's something that develops the more you merge with these entities. And the merging happens via consents, and that can be direct. Yeah, you can take over my body and help me out and guide me around. And part of it's like the act, the ritual, the desire, the divination of it is its own consent, but you have to build it over time. And I think it requires like merging, which if you read any books like Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin, which is one of my favorite books about possession and how to get fully possessed usually takes years, unless you're doing some direct ritual to ask for it. It usually takes a long time to fully merge. It starts out with just slight influence to more and more influence to more influence, and over time, the more you build it, and it requires usually sinning, going against covenant, not having faith in Jesus and protection from the Holy Spirit, and then full possession takes a long time. So we'll get into more of that later, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and one more question, because I'm really interested about this stuff, especially people who learn how to do this or it happens later on in their life.
Yeah.
Once you go in there and you give consent to these entities or these beings that are kind of taking you on a tour, does that make future interactions more accessible? Like, are you going into this world, this astral world simulation, whatever you want to call it, as it with more ease, or is it still, whenever they want to take you?
I would say it's a little bit of both. You got to keep in mind, if this is truly entity facilitated completely, like I believe, not an ability you're having, I don't think you can leave your body without a violent traumatic experience that you're escaping your body from, or near-death experience. I don't think you can leave your body just by meditating and going out. I think meditation is the signal, and then that signal can be picked up upon, and they can go, yeah, we'll take you out of your body. And we'll get into it with the DMT lockout stuff later because it totally correlates. I don't want to spoil too much, but essentially they are pulling you out of your body. You're consenting to it. You're desiring it. But if you don't get out of body, and you're like, let's say you're a pro and you're doing it all the time, and one day you don't get out of body, and you're like, why did I get out of body? I usually do. I did the same thing. It could just be because an entity was busy and they didn't want to waste their time or resources because they're doing other stuff. They have limited amount of entities. They're a hive mind Borg, but they don't have infinite numbers of entities. They only have as much as died in the flood, right? So I think they just literally, if they're too busy or they don't want to deal with you right now, they won't. And then you could just say, oh, well, it's a psychic ability that doesn't have a 100% success rate, so it'll happen later. I'll try it again later. Because you don't get out of body every time you try. You do not.
Yeah.
But their assets, like Bob, the people who are big-time assets, they absolutely cater more towards their energy and resources too because they're worth it. If you're just some dumb stoner and you're just trying to have fun with it, you're less of an asset. They're going to spend less time dealing with you, and you might have a lot harder time getting out of body. So I think that's totally what's going on.
I think you also said something very important, that maybe they were just busy. These entities in the spiritual realm were busy and they didn't have time to take you. What are you saying right there? You're saying that they're not omnipresent, right? They're not like God Most High. They're not omnipresent.
No, they're not.
So like I said, in the New Age, and even some, within some, I guess you say some Christianity, there's praying to these angels. And I think it's important to remember that they're not omnipresent. And if you are getting something back from them, I think you definitely need, I don't think you should pray to angels, but if you are, I think you definitely have to test that spirit because to your point, they're not omnipresent. So it's like everybody says, oh, I'm in communication with the Archangel Michael, especially in the New Age, right? Yeah. The Archangel Michael, it's like, that's impossible for the Archangel Michael to come visit everybody. So be careful.
Exactly. And we'll get into more of that stuff later, but the reason they have this apparent somewhat level of omnipresence to people is, like I said before, they are a telepathic hive mind Borg. All the aliens, by the way, who might be demons in meat suits, they all have telepathic, abilities with everybody around them. If those are truly spirits inside of them that are connected to this hive mind, etherically or however it works, then they can instantly share information across all of their sources instantly with perfect memory. And they seem to have that ability. Otherwise, a lot of this lore, not in my book, not just the astral stuff, but all over, to carry out these very specific and dialed-in psyops where they're doing very specific data control, like especially remote viewing with statistics, and they're keeping these numbers seeming legitimate. I think it would require some level of like they're basically an etheric AI with the way they can share information. I think they have individual traits, but they don't break from the script, and they're not warring with each other like some people say. Some people say the fallen angels, they're warring with other ones. I don't see evidence of that because they seem to be all working together in lockstep, and I don't see anything going against that. And if they're part of a hive mind, how would they war against each other truly? It doesn't make any sense. So that's what I believe personally. If you got any questions, let me know, but if not, I'm going to move on, brother.
Let's go.
All right, bet. So this next one's in Leland's work. I call it immersive astral propaganda. and it says the facilitators, which is one type of guide. He has different names, but he later says, oh, the facilitators, overseers, guides, blah, blah, blah. They might all be the same thing. I don't know. He literally says that. So he says the facilitators fulfill a variety of functions in the after-death zone where you go when you die, which astral travelers can visit, which is what he's doing. Depending on the station to which they've been assigned. Thus, they may be broken down into subgroups identified by the specific tasks they perform. One night, my guide arranged for me to watch a documentary in the astral that provided an overview of these tasks. That, like, hey, here's our job. Here's an astral documentary. And then he says, I was brought to an area of non-physical reality that I perceived as a conference room large enough to seat a dozen people at several small tables. At first, I seemed to be merely watching it. Moments later, I was actually inside it, personally witnessing the things described while a voice explained what I was seeing. So, even in the astral, you're going to get some propaganda, which, you know, it all, but... so he's instantly shifted without consenting because you're already out of body. That's enough consent. They don't need any more. So that doesn't really matter necessarily. But instant shift into this documentary. Now it's immersive. It's a world built around him. And he's hearing a voice in his head, but he doesn't see it because they're always there. And they can make themselves known by being characters, or they can be in your mind and just influence you however they want. And they can make you think you're alone, but they'd rather you think they're usually there because you're going to find out they're always there. And we'll get into that more.
That sounds like what they call schizophrenia.
Well, I mean, if you're on my team, you'll know that schizophrenia is just, you know, a level degrees of clairvoyance and clairsentience where you're you know, dealing with literal entities and
yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, when you tell them they're and Jerry Marzinski's work supplies good evidence for that. The way they deal with scripture, these you know, unseen forces and stuff when they hear it, and yeah, I definitely think that's what's going on. And it's funny because the astral entities have a total cover-up for schizophrenia, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but it's very interesting that they try to cover that up.
Can I ask you one more question? All these experiences that you've read about from these, you know, renowned astral travelers, or just experiences in general, do they ever have an anti-Christian message? Like specifically, like we know that the demons do they have an anti-Christian message in the astral realm?
Constantly. Now, I didn't cover it too much in my written down presentation that I was going to get to, but for example, they have, and I think I should talk about this more, it's important, they have belief system territories. Now, they say when you die, if you are stuck in a false belief system, such as they mention Christianity more than any other. Of course they do. And they even go on a tour to a belief system territory for Christians. And they don't go to the Islamic one. They don't go to the Mormon one. They only go to the Christian one that they talk about, at least that I've seen. But they seem to have one for every belief system that isn't like the New Age Gnostic, you know, type. Even reincarnation stuff. If you're a Buddhist even who has a specific viewpoint, you will die and you'll go to these belief system territories. Sometimes you'll go to a healing center first or after to deal with certain things. But ultimately you end up in a belief system territory. And many people talk about this. And the Christian one is the one they talk about the most. And they say, look, this is where you go to deprogram from your conditioning on Earth, basically. But they let you do it slowly and come to it, you know, not aggressively all at once. But they have like classes you can go to, like you're at a school or something, and they deprogram you from Christian belief systems, yes, in the astral.
Oh, wow.
So, of course they do. And they talk about Jesus, and they try to rebrand Yahweh in certain ways, but I don't know if I cover much of that today, but in my book, there are definitely details of that, way more so. So buy the book. But we got some more here. I call this Gentle But Firm Hands, and it is Bob saying, one of the greatest enigmas of this whole affair is that someone, or more than one, has been helping me from time to time in such experimentation. Perhaps they are with me every time, and I'm just not aware of them. I do not know who these helpers are or why they are helping me. This is before his, like, higher self introduced himself, and he's just being behind the scenes but dealing with him. And he says, they certainly do not seem to be guardian angels. Their assistance seems to be more of their choosing and deliberation than mine. They are rarely friendly in the sense that we understand the term. The feeling of gentle but firm hands on each side of me was very strong. The same hands turning me around to leave, much as one steers a blind person, could not have been more vivid. So even in the astral, when you think you're alone, you're getting pushed around. If you don't want to go somewhere, you're getting moved around. I think that's important to know.
I think it's interesting they called them angels.
He said these don't seem to be guardian angels.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah.
Okay.
They usually say light beings, but they sometimes use angels anonymously or synonymously, but not representing of like a Christian angel. They never really talk about it in that context. So an
ascended master.
Sure, but that's just another colloquial term for it could be a higher self, because people kind of blend the few. But ascended master usually means a spirit that's not yourself, that is higher in the higher realms, and they're teaching others. Yes. So yeah, there's some of that too. They all mix together, but it's hard to tell who's who because they all seem to have the same vibe, like the way they act, what they do with you. They're always teaching you stuff. They need you to learn things on your own instead of being force-fed information. They want you to experience it so you believe it more, come back and share it with the world. Instead of just telling you everything, that's eventually that'll get old. Like channeled stuff. You have to immerse them in a fake reality and make them think it's real, and then they have these experiences they can tell people. So I think that's the reason they're doing all this elaborate stuff, because it's much more convincing to these people who will then share it with larger audiences who find it fascinating and, oh, I want to try that. That sounds fun, which is what I did because I'm retarded and I wanted power. So this next one is on the same vein, and it says, I call this Supermind Take the Wheel. It says your destination seems to be grounded completely within the framework of your innermost constant motivations, emotions, and desires. You may not consciously want to go there, but you have no choice. Your supermind or soul is stronger and usually makes a decision for you. So in the astral, you don't even often get to decide where you go. Your supermind, who knows better, who's not a demon, it's definitely you who's more evolved, helping you. He's taking you to these realms, and you don't want to go there, but you don't really have much of a choice. That's what he just said. So,
that's crazy.
It is crazy.
The whole higher self thing is a little concerning, that there's like a splinter of your spirit somewhere else that's not on Earth. And I think we have one spirit, right? I don't think it can splinter off into a million different realities. But once again, and what that pushes though is anti-Bible, right? It's this multiverse Gnostic view of the world.
Oh yeah, and there's Christians believing in the multiverse stuff and alternate Earths, and I'm talking about Dan Duvall again. Sorry. And a lot of people just buy it, and they say, oh well, Scripture just doesn't give us all the answers, but this is definitely aligning with the Bible. And I'm like, no, you're using exegesis. You're just pushing your ideas on it because entity contact has made you think it. And what does the Bible say about entity contact and divination? It says you will be deceived. So so we got a couple of short quotes, and these next 4 short ones are basically conclusions Bob has come to after his Monroe Institute started, and this is where he is getting tons of people trained up to be astral travelers, and he's saying, okay, well, after all these experiments and channeling sessions and out-of-body stuff and entity contact, these are the conclusions, some of them he's come to. So he says they can, like they as in these higher spirits, they can change the temperature of that they can change the temperature of that visited human body, so they can change your body temperature. Weird. It says, notice how easily any potential anxieties or fears are overcome by simply a pattern of radiation emanating from strangers. So what does the Bible say whenever an angel encounters a man and comes and visits him? What do they always say? They always say,
do not fear.
Do not fear, do not be afraid. Why do they do that? Well, because you're usually like, in shock. It's a big, probably visual. It's probably a lot of energy. It's exciting and it's scary. But they're not trying to scare you, right? But it's a lot to deal with. Now, they could, just like these demons, jack into you and hijack your emotions and make you feel bubbly and warm inside. They could do that because that's what they're doing to him constantly. But they decide not to because that's manipulation, which is actually, it seems at the surface for an experiencer, oh, this is a more dangerous entity because I feel this shock. But if they were messing with your chemicals, isn't that even worse?
Yeah.
That's what I like to point out to people, because they are constantly making you feel calm and chill about everything happening, which is interesting. Did you have anything, brother?
Well, I just wanted to add on to that. The Bible definitely points to that these angels can possess you. Just look at Judas, right? Didn't Satan put the idea on his heart before he fully consumed him?
Yeah, and I have complex thoughts on that whole thing, but I definitely, I don't subscribe to the Satan as a literal entity who fell from heaven. I know that's a very common belief. I don't subscribe to it, and I have one of my male role models, who's a Bible scholar expert, wrote this like 20-page breakdown using the Septuagint original text, not the Masoretic, which is where that's inferred from. And he basically breaks down how the language changes and it can't be an entity and it's not referring to Satan. I don't want to get on a tangent.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
But please, if you're interested, it's very powerful. Look up red_river_D on Twitter and read his pin post. It's very eloquent. I think it's on the ball. What do I know? Anyway, so we got more here. He also says the entire history of humankind and Earth is available to them in the most minute detail if needed. Now, this is important because when you get to channeled work, which is the same entities you're dealing with in the astral, my whole second chapter, I deal with 12 different channeled sources that are some of the most popular, and I cross-examine the details of what they're saying. Thematically, pretty much aligned for the most part against Christianity and pushing New Age Gnosticism and stuff like that. But they often don't align in the details in such diverse ways that they cannot coexist, which means either one of them is telling the truth or none of them are telling the truth. And they are always attacking Christianity, by the way, exclusively almost as far as religious beliefs go. And they push the New Age Gnostic stuff, like I said, disagreeing with each other. So the entire history of humankind on Earth, the Akashic Records is available to them at all times, perfectly to every detail. Why are they all giving us different stories constantly? But you have to really do the homework to understand that. Otherwise, you're not going to believe me. But I have a summary of that in my book. And then he says, not only can they use the vocal cords and the breathing apparatus channeling, but they can have total access to the memory storage lodged in the individual. So I already knew this, but a lot of people don't know. These entities, guides or demons or whoever, they have full access to your memories of your whole life. And I like to make the point that if they are a hive mind Borg and they can have, AI-like analysis capabilities with their hive mind, and they have instant data access to most, I think all people's memories, but it's possible that Holy Spirit protected people might have some sort of shielding, but that's not most people. So whether or not that's true, I think that they have access to most people's memories perfectly to every detail. And if you have access to all that data, which is the most detailed, immersive data they could possibly have, and hive mind analysis all throughout time, how many false prophecies could they make, or how many could they even orchestrate? Because they can orchestrate and then fulfill these prophecies and give information to channel to mediums and say, look, you predicted this. You knew this because spirits helped you. Like so many people predicted 9/11. You think demons didn't know about 9/11 in advance? They would have to be really off dropping the ball to not know about that or be a part of planning it, which obviously they had some sort of plan in every major world event. So it's just, and then they can give prophecies to people in dreams, and then you can say, oh, I had a prophetic dream. No, they're just downloading information into people to match their coming plans so that you can go, oh, I must have psychic abilities. I need to explore this further. It's a gateway drug to astral travel and lucid dreaming and all that stuff. So I make it important to note they're admitting that they have full memory access to every person. So
one question real quick. So you're telling me while we're in our regular sleep state that these entities can come and put dreams inside of our heads?
Yeah. Just like the astral stuff, same thing. It's the same mechanism. Now, are they doing that for every dream you have? No. Like I said, numbers, return on investment, they're not doing it for every dream you have. If it's super vivid, or there's an entity contact, or they're trying to make you sign or verbally agree to certain things, which is they do consent harvesting type dreams. Vicki Joy Anderson talks about this a lot, looking at her work, where she's had tons of these experiences, and they try to give you elaborate dreams with elaborate scenarios, or sometimes really stupid ones that are silly to make you not think deeper about it. And they make you a little bit more lucid, and then they will try to get you to agree to certain contracts or even bow to entities on a throne, literally, in your dream. Now, is that your subconscious creating that? Maybe sometimes, but I doubt it's happening as much as people report it. And I think, and now you're thinking, well, it's not fair. How do you gain consent in dreams? And that's not fair because I'm not like myself fully. I'm in a dream mode. And what I like to tell people is, first of all, I don't think they can gain huge consents and come abduct you after they get some consent in a dream. I think it's gradual and they can get little bits more here and there, less so in the dream world. That's what I believe personally. Now, whether that's true or not, they use dreams for consent harvesting on occasion. And when they do this, I was going on with this point. I lost track of thought.
It's all good.
Dang, I had a good thing going. Hold on one second. Brain fart, man. This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
I had it. Anyway, yeah, so they get into the dream world and they can do that to you, and I don't believe... No, it's gone. I'm getting totally hit right now. Dang, I had something good. I know what to say, but damn. All right, well, we're going to move on because that's embarrassing. I had something. Okay, let me shine here. Okay, so we got a very adjacent topic, and it is the sort of Akashic Records, but Bob is accessing the Akashic Records of his own life. So he said, now it's not like the whole world, which he can access as well, but he's going into his own memories, which he is now getting full access to every memory. He says, I immediately encountered the expected, a layer of file, library, or mainframe containing every moment of my life to date, with more pouring in that matched exactly my thoughts and actions as I conducted the investigation. This was far more than memory as we consciously think of it. Upon selection of any given point in the past, I relive the event in every detail, down to each minute sensory input, thought, and emotion. I soon realized supermemory was not altogether pleasurable. With such intense hindsight, one becomes all too painfully and sadly aware of the many irrational decisions made, the stupid mistakes, and the missed opportunities. So he's telling you, and now if an entity is facilitating this whole thing, that means, like I said, they have this access, which is already kind of verified by this source, and he's saying now he can relive every little detail of his memory with their help, right? So if he can access this and relive it and feel like he's there for the first time, which is what they also say, they'll say, oh, when I relive it, it's not like I'm watching a movie, it's like I'm reliving it like I'm there. Past life memories can have a similar feeling where you're like, oh, I feel like I'm there. It's the same thing. It's very immersive. And that goes into the whole point I was making before about data collection. What can you prophesy and gain consents from whenever you, like when you go to a medium and that medium says, oh, you're going to break up with your husband in a few months, just wait. And the demons already know that your husband's cheating on you and he's being sloppy. And they're going to and then when you believe that, not only is it already probably happening, but your belief acts as additional consent for them to involve themselves and go on assignment and act in these people's lives because you're believing it, which acts as consent and faith in the situation. So that's what I like to tell people as well.
I have a question for you, and I've always kind of thought this, and maybe I don't know enough about the Akashic records.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like, because I know how the enemy likes to counterfeit things.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me that the Akashic records, especially pertaining to our lives, is a counterfeit version of the Book of Life.
You know, I don't hate that. That's probably some truth to that. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, are these memories they're accessing really the memories that you have, or are they simulations that know about you and they're recreating it with their own details to manipulate you into certain things? It's hard to say. Both are possible, but I lean towards the first one, that it's a true memory, and the details are genuinely remembered, because I think it's all logged. And that would mean the Akashic Records has some truth to it, as in everything that has happened exists in some sort of way. Maybe, but if all these Akashic Records visits are giving conflicting information about history and all these things, then we can assume they're simulations just like the rest of this stuff, because it's all entity facilitated at the end of the day. So you see what they want you to see. And if they want you to believe you're accessing your own memory, they'll give you your own memory. It helps fulfill their role as legitimate sources. So I think both is happening, absolutely. Let's see. We got some more fun stuff here.
All right.
So this is Leland talking about the shadow worlds, and he says they, as in other entities in the astral, dead people, and he's visiting, they're waiting for a bus to the alternate was worlds, where they'll experience what things would have been like had they made other choices at major turning points in their lives on Earth. The other two lines are a benefit to the living rather than to the dead, referring to astral travelers visiting. He says the alternate is worlds may be visited by people who want to see what their present life would be like if they had made different decision at some point in the past. Alternate will be worlds give them a chance to see what consequences might develop from a decision currently under consideration. The alternate was system is the only one of the three shadow worlds that gets much use these days. People have forgotten that they can travel to the shadow worlds and help make decisions about how to lead their lives. So he's saying these realms you can go to are basically like the Akashic records of what might have happened. The maybe in an alternate world potential never really happened simulations, basically. And if you go to the one about future stuff, you can basically say, oh, well, if I do this in my life, if I marry this person, or if I get this job, what will happen to me? And they'll give you a simulation telling you, oh, this will happen, so you better do this, or you better not do this because this will happen, which basically means you can go there in the astral and make all your decisions in advance, and then entities will give you what they want you to do. So if you have a potential future of being a psychic medium and you're like already in the astral and you're like, maybe I should go do some psychic work and help people, which is what you believe you're doing, they could give you a future reality of going, you'll be successful, you'll do this and that. They want you to, they're programming certain beliefs in you while also guiding your actual life decisions, making you think it's some sort of tangible, accessible thing in a potential future. And they talk about probable futures, like this is a real future if you make the right moves, and if you don't make the right moves, that's why it didn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's definitely risky going into these realms and listening to these entities.
Yeah, I mean, well, once you see it through a Christian lens, like I'm pointing out in the simulation way, it's hard to unsee it, and then everything gets a lot creepier in the hindsight of going, oh, they were going on elaborate means to convince people of this stuff, and it costs them nothing except their time and energy, which they have quite a bit, but not infinite. Another note I like to say about this is that the entities there, after he left this realm for the first time, or one of the times, they're talking about the worlds. They're explaining to him how they work, the entities, his guides. And they're saying, yeah, your asylums on Earth where all the crazy people are, the schizophrenics and these types of characters. They say they're filled. They don't say how many, but they say these places are filled with crazy people who went crazy because they traveled to these realms, these specific realms, so frequently that they forgot what it was like. They forgot the difference between past, present, and future. Even when they go back to their body, they forget, and they turn crazy because it's too much. And they say it happened because they went without proper guidance, which is basically them saying, hey, don't forget, we're going to be here for you. Don't ever try to leave us, which you can't leave them. They're always there, but they want you to be cool with it when you find out they're never gone. So they're trying to give you like, hey, you want to be afraid of traveling by yourself. It's too dangerous out here because look what happened to these people, which is also a cover-up for schizophrenia, for all the crazy people in there with schizophrenia. They're saying, no, it's not because of entity spiritual harassment from demons. No, it's because they went astral traveling without guides. All these people. And I'm like, if that's true, why is Leland the only person in the astral realm, like in the astral community, talking about this place? I've never heard Bob talk about it. I've never heard Emmanuel Swedenborg talk about it. I've never heard Robert Bruce, William Bullman. These are the top guys. I've never heard any of them mention this place, and it seems like it's something they cater to Leland and didn't really share with other people. So if all these crazy people are going insane from it, how are none of these other top astral travelers even discussing it, which is I just find interesting to note. So,
yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Question real quick, and then we'll go on. This is a quick question. All these beings that they're meeting, are they posing as false angels of light, or are some of them coming out and saying, hey, we're nefarious? Because I'll tell you one thing, this kind of reminds me of some of the confessionals with Tony Merkel or whatever that I've heard, where these people are actually like serving ball or something in this spiritual realm. They know who they're serving. From what you read, are these all angels of light, or some of them know they're in communion with these fallen gods and working for them?
Now, that's a great question, and I love this one. The people who think and believe, and to a degree are, working for negative entities in the astral, from what I know, which I haven't heard too many people get into great detail about it, but it seems to me they are using it as a form of, okay, I'm working for this dark entity now, and he wants me to go harass this person in the real world, not the astral, but the real world, but in an astral form, and maybe harass them, cast a spell on them, cause some problems in their life, just like demons do to a degree. And what I think is happening there, in my opinion, and I could be slightly off, is that their human consent, their human belief, and their human desiring to help these entities who they think they're under control over, which they are to a degree, acts as the permission slip. And these demons are then using the humans' permission, which they don't have on their own fully. They have to gain consents. But like witchcraft and spells and this astral assaults that people experience, or these weird encounters, I think is facilitated still by the entities. It's not you, but they require human consent to be able to carry some of these things out. So when you say you're working for them, it's because they need you, because they can't do it fully or as easily without your additional consents to harass these other people, depending on the circumstances. That's what I think is going on. And I think it's still a lot of simulation involved. But like, for example, people will say, oh, I saw this person visit me, like a ghost, basically. They see like a ghost, and it's that astral traveler. And people will say they've seen that. Now, is that really the person traveling there in the real-time zone, which is not a simulation technically? It could be. And it's really they're just being carried there by an entity, and they're standing there or flying there in the astral. Is that happening? Or is it, how demons can masquerade as ghosts and ghost apparitions all the time, and there's plenty of testimonies of people seeing ghosts that are just roaming the place where they died, and they don't know they're dead, and they want you to believe that about ghosts that stay on the earth plane. That's a demon masquerading as a ghost. So why can't a demon masquerade as you, who you've given consent to also, and then give you a simulation in the astral that's fake, matching up what they're carrying out on your end? It could be either, and it doesn't totally matter, but the thing is, it could be one of the other.
Let me ask you that real quick. So you're telling me there are demons posing as us, our higher selves, showing us
our astral traveler selves.
Our astral traveler selves showing us something prophetic. We think it's us. I shouldn't say we. I've never done astral travel. But they think it's them, and then they carry that out in their daily life.
To a degree, if I visit you in the astral and you see me floating around like a faint little ghost form, is that me actually traveling there, or is that a ghost or a demon pretending to be an astral
Mm.
me, and then I'm getting a simultaneous matching vision, seeing you, but really it's a simulation of you that they created, and they give it to us at
Ah,
the same time, so that if I contact you later and say, "Remember, did you see that?" You'll go,
ah.
"Yeah, that was crazy, dude. Hell yeah, that was. I want to try." It could be that happening, and
You know,
I don't know for sure, but I lean towards that other side, which is trippier, but it's technically very possible with the abilities they have.
yeah, I'm with you. You actually heard that what you're saying right there. And like I said, I have my own thoughts on this, but this is your show, and I'm definitely digging what you're putting out there. A lot of this stuff. It reminds me of the telepathy tapes
Oh
and the
yeah,
Hill.
I have complex thoughts on that whole thing.
I know it's interesting, and how both of these people, I mean, from different parts of the country, they knew each other in the astral realm. So it sounds like what you're saying here is that what they know is kind of a manufactured NPC of that other person.
It could be, and if it's not, it's still facilitated by entities. Now, there's complex things about that whole topic because telepathy tapes is very new age and not well, pretty much new age in material. But then you have Joe and Franco coming out with saying no, they're cherry picking information, and many people, not all of them, are having Christian experiences, seeing Jesus and seeing angels and spiritual warfare between angels and demons, and these new agers are just are the deceived ones. And now, or is it all a deception? Now, the Christian ones, I have studied this for a bit, and some of the Christian ones will say they went on tours to heaven many times, sometimes multiple times in a few weeks. And one testimony I remember hearing, it stuck out to me, said he was guided by Mother Mary, Saint veneration a little bit too much
Well,
there.
if it's Mother Mary, be careful. Also, real quick, Seth, before we go, is there any way you could turn the volume up on your mic?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, yeah.
How is that? Be honest.
Whoever is trying to listen, how is that? Let us know in the comment. Let's go, and we'll have
Can
because
you
I
hear
can
me
hear you.
okay?
I can hear you great. Yeah,
Okay. I want to make sure.
yeah.
They got their headphones down. I don't want to mess up everybody else.
No, that was the second time someone said that, so I just want to.
I turned it up, but not dramatically. You know what
Okay,
I'm saying?
cool.
So, yeah, let
So,
me know. But we're good for now, I think.
all right, cool.
But yeah, the one testimony that stood out was someone being guided multiple times in a few weeks to heaven, guided by Mother Mary, which is the saint veneration thing, which I'm sure you don't agree with either, and that they went to meet God and couldn't hear him because the angels were too noisy and they were talking over God. And I don't know about you, but if God's talking, you're going to shut the hell up,
Yeah.
especially as an angel. And if he's talking to you, you're going to hear him no matter what is going on around you. So I just don't, I think that's a fake simulation. And and then the same source says dogs and likely all other animals have guardian angels too. And with silly names that they provide. Now, does this mean that all the Christian views of Jesus in the astral, is that all fake? I don't want to say for sure. Maybe it's not. The reason I say this is because sometimes they'll say, "Oh, Jesus told me not to pray to angels, but pray to him and to God only, and then he'll dispatch whoever he needs." And that's a very, very good point that I agree with. And that's not even what Catholics will say. So the fact that they said that feels legitimate, but is that more limited hangout to get you to believe the other stuff? I don't know. But the fake heaven thing, it definitely happens in NDEs as well, which we might talk about later if we have time.
Oh, I love NDEs. I love listening to people talk about them.
Yeah, it's there. I have this wild one I'll share later. You might have heard, but it's the telepathy tape stuff. Even the Christian kids will say there is deception happening, and that explains the New Age sources. But the Hill, is that a real location where people meet, or is it some collective entity facilitated consciousness area? Here's the thing. They aren't doing divination and seeking this practice. They are unable to control it and go, well, to a degree, it seems. So, and I feel bad for these kids because they have so much to deal with already. So is this God giving them some sort of actual way to benefit people in the astral in a real way because they seem to be intercessors? I don't want to say for sure. I would hate for it to be all deception, but it's possible because there is sketchy stuff happening, but there is deception. And they do fake Jesuses. So is that the real Jesus these kids are encountering? I don't know. I'll have to look in more into that because I haven't read all the books on it yet. So give me some time. But that's a crazy one for sure.
All right, let's go on. Sorry for taking you off track.
No, you're good. I love talking about this stuff. So now we got. I'll probably just summarize this one because it's a little long. But Robert Bruce is another source I talk about a little bit, and he's a different Robert, astral traveler. He wrote Astral Dynamics, and this is a quote from it that I'll just read it. It's fun. He's talking about entering paintings in the astral and what you can do. So he says the projector then moves into the target rather than passing through it. This seems to trick the subconscious mind into creating a virtual astral realm around the projected double, identical to that shown in the picture or mirror being approached. When you project, go towards the poster, keeping your mind blank. Don't think about what you are doing, just gaze into it, move towards it. As you approach it in this way, your subconscious mind will be tricked into creating an astral realm exactly like the poster. Just move up and into the poster. It's like stepping into another world. Everything in this world will be exactly like the poster. It will appear to be a normal three-dimensional world, an exact copy, indistinguishable from reality. To customize this world, cut and paste small pictures of things or people you want to find in this world when you enter it. If you cut out a small picture of someone living or dead, your subconscious will create a thought-formed shell, and they will be able to be there waiting for you. This may be an excellent way of communicating with those that have died. So, yeah, I don't know. That's telling you you can create your own astral realm simulation based off of any painting, and if you just mood board paste a picture of a dead person on it, you might be able to encounter them there. Or it's a thought form shell you created of your subconscious mind, but it might be a way to contact entities, which that's stupid. I'm sorry, there's no logic to it. Is they're saying your subconscious mind creates it, or is it a demon facilitating it to expand the consciousness potential abilities? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, no, that's fun. And then he also talks about mirror portals, which he essentially tells you avoid reflective surfaces, mirrors, even still water, because if you go into it, it'll portal you into a reverse image world of everything that you're experiencing. And I thought that was full. I thought he was full of shit. I did.
Upside down world, basically.
Not upside down, but like it mirrored. So, basically. But it's everything's just flipped. And
Okay.
I thought it was totally full of crap. And I was like, I'm gonna try that out. It's not gonna work. So I go through a mirror when I'm in the real time zone, floating around. And I think I'm going to end up on the other side of the wall that I'm going through and just go through it. No, I was in a reverse image world of everything, and I saw my body, and everything's just turned around slightly, and and the thoughts going through my head at this moment are, oh my god, wait, if I jump into my body right now before going back, am I going to be, gay and crippled and right-handed now because I'm left-handed, and I'm straight and I'm not crippled? And I thought, these were jokes in my head, but I was literally believing like, am I going to get stuck in this reverse world? And it's like the same world, but it is totally flipped, and it's unnerving, and it made me feel gross and weird, and I was like, this is making me uncomfortable. So I go back through the mirror, and then I come back into my body, and I'm like, that was a close one, guys. I don't know what was about to happen, but that was scary. So just thought, I didn't know if that was an alternate Earth where everything's mirrored, but it's the same. I was like, this is stupid now. So
that's crazy.
It's a fun little story.
And you did that without any chemicals, just by practicing astral travel? Meditation. Okay.
Yeah. Disassociative meditation. Don't do that. Empty your mind.
Meditate on the word. Don't dissociate yourself from.
Yeah, focused meditation on the word. That's fine. But I get too zoinked out when I meditate because just from natural habits. So I try not to do it anymore.
Yeah,
I don't need it. I thought I needed it. I do not. They can make you feel real good when you meditate though. So you got to be careful with that.
Question real quick, and maybe you know the science behind this, not to take you too far off a tangent.
Go crazy.
When you're meditating, is there a chemical reaction that then goes on in your brain, which then takes you to this simulated reality? And does that chemical have anything to do with DMT possibly, since our brains produce it naturally?
I don't want to speak as an authority figure on the chemical aspect of it, but I do know the core common theme here is theta brainwave states, and that's 4 to 8 hertz. And you can easily achieve this with binaural beats, matching frequencies to get you to there. But the common theme with all past life regression, out-of-body travel, channeling, all these things, and the drugs that get you into these states, they get you into a theta brainwave state, which is a specific meditative state before full sleep, which is more 0 to 4 hertz, or 0.5, whatever. So 4 to 8 hertz is the ideal for this practices, and I don't know about the chemicals alongside it, but it's definitely a brainwave state thing. That is the common theme. So meditation gets you there if you're good, if you get good at disassociation.
Interesting.
Yep. So it's interesting there. This next one is Leland, where he's talking. God, this light on me is too bright now. Oh, whatever. Anyway, so he's talking about his guides are talking to him, Leland, and they're saying, "We're going to come visit you in your dreams tonight, and you're going to get," which is they say it, and they're going to go give him a test, his final test before he gets to the next level, whatever that means, and so he goes to sleep that night, and he gets visited in his dream, and he says, I became a single blade of grass. A strong wind blows me this way and that, and I feel exhilarated. All at once, I become aware that I'm surrounded by millions of other grass blades. I make a startling realization. I can simultaneously maintain an awareness of myself as a single grass blade and as a multitude of grass blades. Yet my unique beingness has a precise location within the vast tapestry of grass that surrounds me. Very good, the overseer says. You learn quickly. We've designed a set of images and sensations in order to illustrate certain aspects of the human condition, he says. Our intention is to show you how the evolution of human consciousness looks from our perspective. 1. Normalization of the hive mind Borg, which is describing it perfectly. And 2, they made him a piece of freaking grass, and he's like, I love this. He even says he feels the nutrients flowing through him, and he feels himself growing. That's the level of control we're talking about in these simulations, so don't get it twisted. They can do anything. And after that, I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's like 20 pages he gets into, but he describes after that, they turn him into a flower and then a bee, very on the nose with the bee hive mind stuff, and he goes into a beehive, and he's flying around, and he says it feels probably what it's like to be a bee. Now, these entities we know from the Bible can possess pigs and probably all other animals, so they can create simulations that are pretty close, if not the actual thing, because that's what their abilities seem to be. So he becomes a bee and then downgrades to a raspberry and then up to a human gardener in this garden dealing with all of these, things he was just interacting with. So, and then Bob Monroe, in his book, he metaphysically time travels to the year 3000 when his guide takes him and gives him a whole disinformation thing there. And then while he's there, his friends that he meets, that he knew in this year, he sees in the year 3000, and they're meeting him, and they're all jumping from body to body. They're going into a panther and also a bird and a leaf, and he turns in all these things. So they use this on multiple people to be like, look, we're all connected. We're all one. You can traverse into any body you want, and possession of these things is okay. That's another idea they're trying to get out there. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely not a good idea. I mean...
No. No, it's not. And to get even more on the nose with this whole simulation thing, Bob talks about Focus 27. Now, this is basically, he talks about Focus like 11, 13, 15, 23, like he skips numbers, but each one represents a different, deeper brainwave state, which accesses different types of realms. It's like trying to map it, but it's all made up anyway, so it's just funny that he thinks it's so scientific. So he says Focus 27 is your own personal dream world where you can go in between incarnations and create whatever you want, and it has structure to it, and it's like a vacation home where you can do whatever you want. It's hedonism central. You can create a fake thought form wife like one of his friends did and bang her out in the astral, and she'll have autonomy and stuff, and it's totally not a demon masking as a woman you're banging in the astral.
Wait, so let me get this straight. Do they have astral families? Have you ever heard of that? Where they have kids that they've created in the astral realm?
Is that something you've heard of?
No, I'm asking if that's something you heard of.
I've not heard of that, but technically, I was going to tell you in a minute, but I'll say that he goes to Focus 27. Bob does quite often after his wife died, because she died and she can now see him in the astral, and he's literally banging his wife in this realm for who knows how long, and he thinks it's her because this is the simulation that's allowed it. And they're like, we're still in love, and it's like so romantic, but it's actually the darkest thing ever because he's banging a demon, his succubus in the astral, who's masking as his wife, and he doesn't even know the difference.
Yeah.
One, they can mask as her pretty well because they have her data, and 2, he's stupid, so that's another layer. He says about this place, each individual is invited to create his own personal and special place within Focus 27, a place to which he may return at will. And he teaches his students at the Monroe Institute to do this, and they all do this. He says the forms that these places take are as varied and unique as the participants themselves, ranging from log cabins by quiet streams to clumps of trees, South Sea islands, palaces of crystal, and corners of one's heart. So you can create whatever you want and have full control over it. I have a whole page-long comedic bit about a commercial advertising this place, and it's kind of silly. So that's fun. And he also says the guidance may be requested according to our participants in many different forms, like guides that are in this place with you, where you're never alone, like I said. It may appear externally or sensed internally. It may be constant throughout all the experiences or may change from time to time. Reports include mention of a glowing white shape, an individual called Sam, a hooded figure who revealed himself as a famous film star, a little dog, the color blue, a human hand, and voices saying, "We are here." Some participants do not see guidance as separate from themselves in any way. Guidance and I are one, as one report says. So these are the silly, goofy cartoon characters that visit you in the astral as guides, and they present themselves however they want in the silliest of ways, because this is your dream world where you can create anything. But when you see them as a light being in the astral, that's their true form, and you know because that's what they tell you. So they're coming as all these various forms, and even in your mind, not physically present, they'll basically talk to you telepathically and be your guide and explain to you how to do things.
Can I ask you a quick question? And you don't have to give me a long answer for this, and then we can get going. Do you think that the DMT realm is the same thing as the astral travel realm?
Well, we are going to get to it a bit later, but...
Okay.
No, what have I got? Short answer is yes, but they cater different archetypes to the DMT stuff to make you think it's separate and that only DMT can get you to access some of these realms, or it's much easier. That, like, they're very specific realms that are very hard to find in the astral. No one talks about the jesters or the machine elves on astral travel, and then you see them in the DMT, so you think, oh, these are different locations that DMT gets me to because it's a specific frequency it's getting me to. That's the lore they're trying to present, but all of it's simulation, and we'll get more into that later. But it is the same. It's the same thing. They just make it goofier and crazier to make you think, oh, the drug's either messing with my perception or it's taking me to even deeper, crazier realms, which are harder to access in the astral because it's infinite, these places. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the logic they're trying to convey, in my opinion. And we got some more crazy stuff. This one's kind of creepy. It makes me feel weird. But Bob is talking to his Godhead, his 1,000 hymns from another past lives or future lives, and they're saying, "Hey, you're the guy. You're the final piece we need. We need your help. Their mission they're giving him is to find a new home world to incarnate on, a new dimension, maybe a new planet, whatever it may be, and they want him to find it in the astral. Now, why they can't do this themselves, or why he even has incarnations in this Godhead that are from the future." So it's like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just silly, and it's funny because they tell him he has a split consciousness, and there's another him sharing his soul incarnated right now on Earth in a woman, and she's the backup person. But they want him to do it. He's the real one, but they have a backup just in case he fails, which is adding to the split consciousness lore, which is against early Eastern reincarnation teachings where you have one soul and it reincarnates sequentially in order. But now they're adding all these new layers, which channel lore promotes the split consciousness. Like there's these Jameson twins, which claim to be splitting consciousness, and they were psychic and had telepathic abilities and had these precognitions of 9/11 and shit. And they're trying to just expand the universe even more and more. But it doesn't match up with early entity teachings and reincarnation either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's silly. So they're talking to him, trying to convince him to do this mission and traverse the astral. So he gets nervous. He's like, this is a lot of pressure putting on my feeble astral shoulders right now. And they want to calm him down because he's getting kind of uncomfortable. And they say, we can help you with that. We can show you a sample of the support you have in here in our own cluster. Do you wish to see this? He says, please, ... And then he describes this in a kind of loose, not poetic, but like loose and fragmented way. So just keep that in mind. He says, thousands of hands reaching out to touch me, eyes staring at me with joy and hope, overwhelming radiance I know is love sweeping into every part of my being. All of these I am, we are. An emotion from the bittersweet smell of success to the pain of parting mixed with fun and laughter, the anger of ignorance, the blindness of belief without foundation, the beauty, the sound of singing voices. And then his Godhead says, does that help you? He goes, it does. Is there more? He's like, he's getting a vision of all of his little hymns from the past in a Godhead, all in a hive, in a little barrel, going, hey, we love you. You're great. Keep going. In a vision. And they're just making him try to feel better. And they're filling him with that feel-good juice in the astral, which is so easy for them. And he's like, okay, I got this. Let's go.
Yeah,
It's goofy as hell. It's really crazy that people don't read this and think this is very manipulative and strange, and also vision control, which is admitted in so many ways with the grass and everything. This is their ability they admit to. The fact that I'm saying it's all fake shouldn't even be a shocker to people really looking at it. But plenty of people read these and don't have this takeaway at all. I'm the first person to make this astral fake claim in like a very direct way that I've seen, which is insane to me. And I'll take care of it, but like I do not understand how I'm the first to this game. It is insane. But we got another crazy one where Bob is in the astral again, floating around very soon after this last instance, and he's alone, he thinks, and he's instantly frozen in place, like sleep paralysis basically. He can't move. And he's kind of freaking out, and then he hears a voice, an invisible voice, and this voice says, "I am the Lord thy God, whom you serve," which he's thrown out the thys, the KJV vibes. Obviously, it's Yahweh, right? And then he explains it like the last one, very loose and chaotic. He says, "A feeling of intense pressure, as if I am dissolving. Now I'm in water. My lungs are full of water. I must have air. Get rid of the water. No, it can't be. It isn't so. There is no water. I have no lungs. I am being made to think that is where I am. It's an influence. I know it's not so. The pressure releases. I can feel fingers of energy probing the core of me. I can stop this. Close the receptors. Close tight. I remember how." Shut up. And then God says, "You do not remember. You do not remember." He's screaming. He's all exclamation points right here. And then, which is kind of pathetic vibes. And then he says, "But I do. I remember the tests. They were so real. I am ready for this demanding energy. It cannot harm me. But what is this? What God can this be? It cannot harm or affect me. You're in an astral headlock and getting a vision. What are you talking about?" And then God says, "Do you not accept me as your God? The idea of a God threatens and amuses me. I let this idea flow out. Do you not fear me? I release a picture of me blowing apart again and again into a million fragments and reconstituting after every explosion." God says, "You are damned. You are no more than wasted energy of me, who is your Lord." The energy fades to a tiny point and vanishes. Okay, so Bob just kicked God's ass apparently by pushing a mental explosion fart at him, and then he vanishes completely after just putting him in a headlock and putting a vision on him. That was very painful. He thinks he's drowning for a moment, and then he's like, "No, wait, I remember," because he had the simulation test where he was trained to practice his lucidity, but they're literally gauging it the entire time, messing with it constantly, to make him bat 1,000 in the astral, and he's the hero, and he's gonna he's gonna kick ass anywhere he goes. They're trying to make him think he is gaining power, he's gaining lucidity, he's getting better at this, and he's nothing can hurt him. So even God, which they're making look like a loser right now, which is rude and not true.
Well, that's part of the deception, right?
Yep. They do many things to keep up that bad press campaign for God. And I guess I'll just cover another one because it's absolutely gonna, it's gonna rock your socks, ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna be super weird. So before I get into it, I will say Bob is the only person to talk about this ever. And I've looked deeply for somebody else to share this testimony. I have not seen anybody do it, and I think it's because it's absolutely ridiculous, and they can't really get away with tricking that many people with this. But Bob will believe anything. So this is a story he's going to tell. I call it "Temporary Mass Lobotomization. All Hail the King." I try to have funny titles for all my subheadings here. So it's just crazy. Let's read it. He says, "At times, in visiting Locale 2, a very unusual event periodically occurs. A couple times he's had this happen. It makes no difference where in Locale 2, which is the astral in general. The event is the same. In the midst of normal activity, there is a distant signal, almost like heraldic trumpets. Everyone takes the signal calmly, and with it, everyone stops speaking or whatever he or she may be doing. It is the signal that he or they is coming through his kingdom. There is no awestruck prostration or falling down on one's knees. Rather, the attitude is most matter of fact. It is an occurrence to which all are accustomed to and complies to, which takes absolute precedence over everything. There is no exceptions at the signal. Each living thing lies down. My impression is on their backs, bodies, arched to expose the abdomen, not the genitals, with their head turned to one side so that he does not see him as he passes by. The purpose seems to be form a living road over which he can travel. I have gleaned the idea that occasionally he will select someone from this living bridge, and that person is never seen or heard from again. The purpose of the abdominal exposure is an expression of faith and complete submissiveness. the abdomen being the most vulnerable part of the body or area that can suffer the most damage the most easily. There is no movement, not even as he passes by. In the several times I've experienced this, I lay down with the others. At the time, the thought of doing otherwise was inconceivable. As he passes, there is a roaring musical sound and a feeling of radiant, irresistible living force of ultimate power that peaks overhead and fades in the distance. After his passing, everyone gets up and resumes their activities. There is no comment or mention of the incident, no further thought of it. There is a complete acceptance of the event as a normal part of their lives. Is this God, or God's son, or his representative? Do you see what's going on here? They're getting crazy with their bad press campaign for God, is what I see happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And
don't you fear me?
Yeah, no. It's so like childish in the way they're portraying it that it's shocking to me that he takes it so literally.
What do you think the percentage of these people are who do astral travel? Do they think it's just fun, or do they actually take it seriously and then allow it, whatever instructions they give them in this world to manifest in their, 3D world?
I think the experiences Bob is getting is more detailed and frequent and crazier than most people. I think some people, yes, have these experiences, but I think most don't. And you got to keep in mind, he's a huge asset, the top-selling author in this field multiple times. He's creating an institute. He is a huge asset, affecting history and having his effects felt throughout time. So he's getting more detail and more immersive stuff than probably most people. And so do others that are assets. If you're not an asset and you're just doing it for fun, I think they're more likely to give you the lucid dream worlds where you just do whatever and it's just have fun with it. But you're not going to get out of body as frequently as these professionals who are assets. Like I said earlier, return on investment. If you're not giving them any return on investment, they're not going to let you get out of body often, and you'll just assume, oh, I'm just not that good at this. I can't do it that frequently. But occasionally they'll give it to you so you don't be like, oh, well, what's going on? I'm never going out of body anymore, and I used to. Which they might do to some people, just like the DMT lockout thing. It just depends. And people just will assume, oh, my psychic ability sucks. I'm bad at this. So I don't think they're all getting these crazy ones, but a lot of people might. It depends on what they're willing to believe, which they can read your mind and make assumptions about what you're willing to accept. So that's another layer here, if that makes sense.
That is pretty funny that one guy got thrown out of the DMT world by the architect of the DMT world.
There's quite a few stories of it, and we will cover it soon, I promise. Let's see.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, we got about another hour or so. I could go to like 11:30.
Okay, bet. Yeah, I want to finish a decent amount, but I want to give time to talk about some fun end time stuff too. So
You're curious. What do you make of? And clearly, I think she's 100% controlled ops. But what do you make of Candace Owens kind of talking about the astral travel, or that Charlie was like this time traveler?
Yeah, I didn't follow that too detailed, but I did see the headlines. Obviously, Candace, she's one of the club. Tucker, Alex Jones, all that. Yeah, Russell Brand, obvious. Some are less obvious than others. Yeah. But she does talk about that, and she said she was. Didn't she say she astral traveled or was invited?
No,
the school.
She would.
The Wizards.
Yeah, she said that she would astral travel, but Charlie was a time traveler. And they were both like kind of groomed, I think is what she was saying.
Well, if she's talking about the time travel thing, it's astral time travel via the Montauk projects or something similar. And I think that's a big psyop. I think those things maybe happen to a degree. And the people who experience the Montauk, the whistleblowers for the Montauk stuff, which is similar to what she's talking about, I believe it happened, but it wasn't real time travel. It was astral time travel, which they do all the time, by the way. We're not going to talk about it too much today, but they do that. I talk about it in my book. And it's just... It's a fake simulation, and it feels real, and they're making you think you have this influence over time, and they're using these kids for these projects, but really it's creating, whether the people involved believe it or not, they're actually just creating lore, which will later come out as a conspiracy and is meant to eventually be dispelled to make you think time travel's real. I think it was always meant to come out eventually, just in its own way, but also for all the SRA victims and MK Ultra victims who are having these crazy testimonies of going to the moon and astral traveling to all these different dimensions, and the SSP stuff, which I think is all the same thing. It's fake to create disinformation pockets of stories and narratives, which I talk about in part 3 most if we get there. But I think that it works in 2 ways. One, when a whistleblower comes out with these crazy astral testimonies, which they might think are real a lot of the time, they not only make the whole thing sound so crazy that the rest of their story is totally delegitimized to the regular masses, but it also makes the people who believe it even crazier and believe all these crazy expansive cosmology things, which are usually Gnostic, pretty much always Gnostic. But eventually it can be used in the end times as the right time to come out, and then people go, oh, maybe it was true because all these things are coming out revealing their stories were real, so it must mean the astral or time travel stuff must be real too. So it's perfect on every level. It works to the demonic satanic agenda perfectly on every level. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad it did, because that one's convoluted a little bit. So yeah, Candace, I think, is just doing the same thing. She's dispelling the stuff when she's told or guided demonically, however it's happening. Because I think she's either told or guided by spirits.
Wait a minute. Are you part of the $7,000 club saying that she's demonic? No, I'm just playing with you. Hey, I think she is. No.
Essentially, yeah.
I'm playing.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
She might be. No, but go on. Let's go on with that, and then we'll get into that stuff later.
Yeah.
Let me finish this.
So you said we got an hour?
Yeah, we got about an hour. Yeah.
That's pretty good time we're making. I think we can do a couple more. So I will say, let's see if I can read this one. Yeah, so this next one is Kurt Leland, and he is astral traveling to where dead people go when they're in the healing centers. This is a healing realm where they go after they die. So he's seeing, he calls them shades, but shades are just the ghost of a dead person, essentially. And he says, if I can find it, he says, I call this memory theft in the astral hot tub. So he says a shade was seated by the side of the plunge in the healing center, which is like a spa. He says, she was unaware of my presence, yet I had no trouble of reading her thoughts. She was about to go back into the memories of a particular time in her life. Apparently, the function of the spa region was to give shades an opportunity to heal themselves by remembering difficult events and figuring out why they occurred. Somehow, I accompanied the woman into her memories, which both of us experienced as if they were happening right now for the first time. So, she didn't even initiate this. She doesn't see him. He gets somehow pulled into her memories just by being near her, which is totally not entities just switching up the scene for him to guide him. And then he relives her memory like it's his own and feels it immersive, every thought, emotion, like it's his for the first time, which gets into the whole past life memory thing. If they can do this, they can do that. Just keep that in mind. And it feels like it's your own. And he knows it wasn't because he remembers what just happened going into it. But it's if he didn't, they could make him think it's his own if they wanted to, essentially. Now, I just find that interesting to talk about, and then we're going to move on quickly to Bob, where he's talking with his Godhead, and his Godhead first asks him if he wants any more psychic abilities besides the astral travel stuff. And, I respect him. He goes, nah, he pretty much says, no, I'm good. I have enough going on with this. And they're like, and then they say, we did not believe those were needed. Bitch, why'd you ask? First of all, then he says, but if you do want one of us to use your body and talk while you go somewhere else, just relax and go to sleep, asking for permission. He says, no, I don't want to be a channel. That's not a route to freedom as I see it. So they just ask, can we possess you? And it's totally chill and just you'll be in the astral, we'll take over your body. He says no. So he did not give consent. Now, he's still demonized and influenced heavily, but full possession, if you read Hostage to the Devil, you will see full possession requires acknowledged direct consent to the act of actual full possession, which he never gave. Maybe he did eventually, but he didn't. And I think that's important to know because he's demonically guided and manipulated, but he's not a fully possessed individual making all this up, which is technically an alternative that could be happening for other people. But they asked him directly, his Godhead, his higher self, can I possess you? Why? Why would, I think that's one of the more obvious demonic trickster moves right there.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you think that's God.
Yeah, of course I'll let you do it. You're a good guy. And why are you asking if you're that powerful also? Why don't you just do it? But they're being respectful. They're being nice guys. Or they have to ask because it's, legal loopholes they have to convey or get through. So we're done with the astral stuff for now. I have more, but that's just what we're covering right now. And I want to move on to adjacent things, which are showing the same thing happening in other areas. So, for example, the dream stuff. I talked about Vicky Joy Anderson earlier. This is her thing I'm stealing, and then I'm going to add my own sauce to it in a second. But she talks about, I don't know if you're aware, she's had hundreds, maybe thousands of sleep paralysis episodes with Shadow People, Hat Man, various entities visiting her. And she's also interviewed tons of people and gotten a cohesive story here. Now, she says after enough experiences, she eventually started to notice, after being sleep paralyzed and looking around her room, she would notice things out of place, such as a window being a few feet away from where it actually is. Weird. Objects in the room that were never there, or things missing that are there. Colors being off. Things like of that nature. Furniture being moved around. So she's noticed it so many times that she said, this can't be my room. I'm not remembering things wrong. This is a different room. What she figured out is, and she believes based on other people saying the same stuff, is this sleep paralysis thing is not physical. It is metaphysical. You're in a dream world created to look just like your room, and you feel it's real because they can make you feel it's physical, and your astral body's frozen, not your physical body. Now, if that's true, this would explain the apparitions they see, which I'm not saying can't be, manifesting in physical ways literally, but it would explain a lot of them that seem to happen frequently, because everybody has a sleep paralysis episode, from what I heard, or most people, and they'll see a shadow person or Hat Man or gray alien. Now, then you would ask, okay, well, why are things off in the room? Is that because their detail control is not perfect and they mess up? Or is it because they have to leave some sort of clues because you're not doing divination, you're being victimized here. This is not going out of body. This is maybe different rules apply and they have to tell you. They have to reveal some sort of clue so that you can figure this out. I lean towards that side of it because their detail control is so perfect in these other examples that I can't imagine it's that way. But these astral realms are also not based off of real places that you're visiting. So maybe because it's your real room, they aren't matching it perfectly because they messed up. But everything else is so perfect where it's just little details. These astral realms don't have anything you can compare to, so maybe it could be their ability. I don't know. But I lean towards the they have to tell you kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
It reminds me of a lot of the stories that I hear on the confessional show.
Well, they got plenty of this going on. And the reason I want to talk to Tony is not only because it's good exposure, but because he keeps pushing the literal astral realm, the second heaven, and he has people on like astral travelers who claim to be intercessors in the astral for God.
Oh, really?
Episode 848, members episode. Watch that. It is not good. The guy's nice. He's a nice guy, but he's deceived by demons.
Yeah, I haven't watched confessionals in like a year and a half. But I used to really like that show back in the day. I
align with Tony on quite a bit. He's a good Christian man, but he's deceived by Dan Duval. He's deceived by these very fantastical stories of these astral experiencers, and it's simulation. And I want to tell him and get on his show. So Tony, hit me up.
Get him on the show.
Yeah, no, I've been calling him out a lot.
And if you're listening, go on the confessionals right now and say. Text them, say have your
boy
Seth,
on. Come on,
get Seth on there.
Yeah, I'm desperate. Help me. No, I'm just playing. So my own flair I'm adding on here though to the whole simulation thing because this is Vicky Joy Anderson's work. Love her, crediting her. But this is a crazier, elaborate thing. So bear with me. Now during these sleep paralysis episodes, assuming they're fake or a lot of them are at least, it makes sense that your astral body's frozen, not your physical, right? That their ability, it makes more sense there, I think. Now, if that's truly what's happening, there's multiple stories, not a ton, but quite a few I've heard of people seeing gray aliens in this sleep paralysis mode and not a shadow person, right? And then they will see the gray alien press a button on their belt. And when they press that button, they shift into a shadow person and transform instantly and shapeshift. Now, if you believe that is a real experience and not a fabricated simulation, what is the message being conveyed here? Okay, an alien messed up and totally boofed it, and his shapeshifter tech wonked out. He had to shift back, and now it's making you think shadow people are all aliens and using technology, materializing the phenomena, and making you think, oh, is this spiritual encounter I've been having just aliens harassing me? First of all, the amount of man hours and physical labor and technology involved would be beyond what demons could do and be so not worth their time. To where it's like they're really going through that efforts just to give you a sleep paralysis episode, which doesn't have many implications to it. That's silly. Now, I'm not saying there's no shapeshifter tech. I don't buy it, but maybe there is. But it's not happening here. If this is a simulation, they're trying to convince the experiencer. Multiple experiences have said this, of this experience. They're trying to convince them that this is a more technological thing and more alien, literal alien-based, not demonic and not demonic meat suits. That's the message being conveyed. And I find that very telling as the whole literal alien psyop is going. That's a very big clue if this is a controlled simulation. Am I making sense?
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect.
And that's definitely, like I said, I'm definitely going to take this in and think about it. The idea that it's all simulated.
Well, I would say God will take people for real NDEs sometimes.
So I believe that stuff. I believe in the real NDEs.
I think there's also false ones, which actually we're on it right now. Let's talk about Brian Melvin's story, and I'm crediting Sean Tabbitt here. This is from his book NDE Conspiracy. This is a very important NDE because he talks about his experience dying, and then he's going to this heaven-like realm. He describes it like a childhood home of his, I believe, and he sees his loved ones there. And they're all saying, "Hey, we're so happy you're here finally. Let's hang out." And they're having a barbecue or something. My words, not his. And they're hanging out. And then eventually, I don't know how much time is feeling like it's passing, but eventually these family members and friends shift into what he describes as demonic serpent-like creatures. And the whole environment shifts and morphs into a hellish type realm. I don't know how cavernous.
Well, I think you went to hell.
Well, yeah, but it's complicated. So yeah, it's definitely not heaven. So they all shift, and it's clearly a demonic deception where they were controlling the vision for the first part. Now, is this what it's really looking like, what it becomes, or is that still more impressed false vision? I lean towards the second, but we'll get more to that. So he is resuscitated and comes back to life and remembers all this. So let's just say if this is a simulation that was heaven-like at first and then shifted after a while, how do we know a lot of people having the New Age heaven-like experiences aren't getting resuscitated before it morphs into the hellish realm? How do we know that that's not happening to a lot of these people? We don't know, and that's why I judge them by the fruits. I'm already a Christian. I'm already gonna be biased towards the Christian narratives and the Jesus pro narratives. But if you're having a very New Age type NDE, which a lot of the testimonies are, is that a simulation where they're trying to what's the benefit of giving someone a false heaven realm before they turn into demonic stuff? What's the benefit to the demonic agenda? Well, if you go to a heaven realm and you weren't saved by Jesus or a Christian, you now come back thinking, oh, well, all that stuff was baloney and I didn't need Jesus to be saved. So that is a huge benefit to people or a huge benefit to the agenda if people believe that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm with you. I think because I love listening to NDEs, and every time I watch or listen to these people's testimonies, one, I try to judge the character or the spirit, but most importantly, whatever they're saying, does it align biblically?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I think if it aligns biblically, I think that we should pay attention to that. Yeah. If it doesn't, I think maybe your idea of this was all simulated, whatever that experience was simulated, definitely makes sense as a trickster, right? As a false narrative that ultimately leads you away from the biblical truth.
Exactly. Yeah, but then you have other people, this guy who went on the confessionals recently in a bunch of podcasts, and I don't remember his name. He had a book. I didn't read the book, but he talked about going to Christian heaven and meeting, Yahweh and Jesus. And I'm not saying it's a fake one, but it could be. And there's details in the book that people were saying were very, his theology and takeaways were very, problematic. What's the thing called word of faith or something where you speak into existence these things or manifest in the Christian way? Something, I forgot the term for it, but it's something like that was on every page. And it was a very problematic takeaway and non-biblical. And I was like, well, does that just mean his, discernment since coming back isn't perfect, which is very likely, or is he getting sort of a expansive Christian cosmology from this fake heaven? Potentially. I don't want to say for sure. I remember hearing details where I was like, I don't know. It sounds a little sketchy. Why are you being shown these things? But it was a Christian message at the end of the day overall. But I think they will co-opt Christians and Christian narratives too. I don't want to say for sure, but I'm just putting it out there that they do it for the telepathy tape kids and make fake heavens sometimes. Maybe some are real, but some are definitely fake with the noisy angels. So I think if that's happening, we have to keep in mind this is all up for grabs right now.
What's your take on the experiences of hell? Because I picked up one guy in my mobile ministry, aka Uber. But anyways, he was telling me a story about his near-death experience. And he says this was about 5 years ago. He says he was an atheist, a drug addict, and not a nice person, his own words. And he says that he was riding his motorcycle, and the last thing he remembered on earth, and that specific, was crashing it. He then said he woke up somewhere else, and he knew he was somewhere else other than earth because time was different. Yeah. There was no concept of time. And we know science, not that I trust science, is kind of pointing that we might live in a multidimensional reality. Time might be a construct. Ancient text and the Bible definitely points to that, where it's 1,000 years to us is like one day to God, that differentiating time. But what he said was, while he was down there, these entities started coming out and started physically attacking him. And then, at first they started verbally attacking him, and then they started physically attacking him. And he said he got so bad and it felt like it was for so long, he started realizing where he was. And then he says, as a last ditch effort, he yelled, he knew he was in hell, and he yelled out to God to help him. And then he says he was then pulled out of that dimension and woke up from a 7-day coma. What say you? Real, fake, or somewhere in between?
Okay.
Sorry to get off on that.
No, I love it. I love it. That's a great story. I have complicated thoughts because, you know, the heaven and hell thing, I'm not 100% studied on this, but I know that, you know, whenever Jesus comes back, I believe, you know, that's coming a couple of years, and we got the millennial kingdom for 1,000 years after, I believe, is fully literal. And then it says that God creates a new heaven and new earth after that on the 8th day of create, you know, the 1,000-day year thing. I believe in young earth, so I'm all over that. And I think that, you know, we get a new heaven and a new earth then, and I don't know what that says about hell, and I don't know if it's clear about that. I forgot. But like, and I'm not trying to push everything in Enoch, because I don't think all of Book of Enoch 1 is accurate, and I think like after the first 36 chapters, it's more loose with who was behind it, besides the Watcher stuff. And they talk about like these holding places for souls. Where,
Sheol.
Yeah, like whenever you die, there's like places for saved people, places for unsaved, and then people who were maybe wronged and might need to like have some sort of judgment throne conversation with God to be like, I didn't get a fair chance, something like that. It describes these multiple places, and I'm not saying I believe this is real. I'm just keeping an open mind. And it's basically saying you're asleep until the great white throne judgment, and there's no time really, and there's no experience, and you're asleep until then. We don't go straight to heaven. We actually rise in the millennial kingdom, and then after the millennial kingdom is really the real heaven and maybe hell as well. So that I like the way it sounds. It kind of makes sense, and that would mean a lot of the heaven hell experiences are vision control. And these people aren't really dead. You know, they might die temporarily, but they come back before their body's like totally unable to be returned to. Right? So these people are never, ever fully dead. Yeah, people die for like, sometimes I heard like a few hours or a day before, I don't know. But their soul returns and awakes before they're truly gone for good. So I don't know if we can trust any of these experiences fully. Now, the ones from God that seem to be fruitful and aligned with the Bible, are these like simulations temporary because they're the holding place till this person's really dead? I don't know. It's trippy, but it's something to keep in mind. I think that story might be true, and that might have been real hell he visited. It would make sense to me, but I also have complicated feelings about the entire hell concept, and I think it's more of a time. Like I don't think it's as the eternity. I don't think eternity is really a time as much of a place, and that sounds trippy to people, but I know time dilation is real in all these experiences, and I've experienced it in DMT trips, and I felt like I was in hell for a long time. Not the hell where I'm getting tortured, but like tortured mentally with crazy, insane simulation experiences. Not like, you know, getting jabbed with a knife. But I'm open to that being real. I don't have a for sure confident answer on this whole thing because it's very loose in the Bible the way they describe it. I think it says like people are asleep when they die, or something. There's something of like don't disturb like when Samuel was awoken, if that was really him or not, it's hard to say from the Witch of Endor. But I'm ranting endlessly. Am I? You know what I'm saying though? I don't have a confident answer one way or the other.
Gotcha. And I like the idea that, you know, and I do believe in Sheol. There's like a waiting place until this end of this judgment period. And maybe what they're experiencing is that. And since you said there's a spot for saved souls and unsaved souls, and maybe the difference is depending on if you're, what their experience. So what you think is hell is just the unsaved part, and what you think is heaven, you might be visiting the saved part. I don't know.
And the time of how it feels, like if you die like 100 years ago, does that mean you got to wait for the great white throne judgment 1,100 years later, assuming that's starting soon? Do you have to wait till then? No, I think eternity is not going to feel like what we can't fathom it. We can't fathom what it will feel like time-wise. It will feel like a long time, but also not probably in other ways. Yeah. And it's going to be really confusing. So I have complicated thoughts on that whole thing in salvation, but we're not going to do that today.
Hold on.
But that was a great question. We're gonna let's do the DMT hyperslap thing, because that's blowing up lately as a topic of conversation, and I went a little slightly viral for my take on it because I posted months ago on Andrew Gallimore, the top DMT researcher who's getting people high on DMT for an hour straight. I had commented on his post about DMT lockout a few months ago, And it got a little bit of traction then. He didn't respond to it, of course. And then I reposted it whenever it was going viral weeks back on all these pages talking about it. And then it was kind of blowing up, and a lot of people followed me that day and said my theory makes sense. And it's basically what I've been saying about the astral simulations thing. So DMT lockout, for those who don't know, is where, you know, someone's doing DMT a bunch, and eventually the entities they encounter, which is usually similar ones quite often, will eventually say to them, hey, what are you doing? You're coming here too much. You're not coming for any education, any spiritual learning. And they want you to think that's what they care about. You know, that's their concern, is your spiritual education, not anything else. And they want you to think it's about that. So then they say, hey, you're banned. You're not coming back. And they snap their fingers, and instantly your high is over, your back and your body, it's over. Some people like to say, oh, they're just tripping balls and they're burnt out their receptors because they did it too much and now they can't get high again. And I'm like, then why is it ending right when an entity is telling them it's ending? And then why did this happen? Zoltan Bathory had a big testimony about this on Danny Jones when he was with Danny Goler, the other big DMT guy who won't respond to my messages because they don't like what I'm saying. And and he says that he got DMT lockout, and then after a few months of meditating on the question, why was I banned and can I return? He's asking to come back, contacting via meditation telepathically for months. And and the whole time he is smoking a ton of DMT, a ton, to where if this was a psychic ability you could develop and the drugs helped you get out of body, you should be getting out of body. An entity shouldn't be able to control it, whether you are or not, if it's your psychic ability. So this is more evidence that it is entity facilitated completely and not your psychic ability. And he gets back though after 4 months of this begging process, which is pretty lame. He goes back finally, and they have a continuous dialogue with him about it. So the burnt out receptors thing doesn't make sense either, because it would require a lot of coincidences and, you know, fake subconscious entity contact of your own subconscious creating it. So I think it's just return on investment. If you're not an asset and you're taking up all their time and you're just having fun with it, doing it so much like some of these people do, you're wasting their resources they need to dedicate towards other projects. If you're not an asset and making waves with other people about this stuff, you're not worth their time. And if you're doing it so consistently, they need to make an excuse, say, "Oh, you're not learning. You're wasting your time." Oh, hey, Steven. Oh my God.
If you're not serious with this, with your DMT experiences and bringing hell on earth, get the hell out of here.
No, exactly. And they act like they're all like high and mighty about it, but they're getting annoyed and they're getting like really impatient with these people, and it's hilarious. So I just find it funny. I'll see you tonight, Steven. We have a session later.
Yeah. Love Steven. He's a great guy.
So yes, I think that's all that's happening. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I think that explains it better than anything, and it aligns completely with the fake astral stuff. And it explains why their archetypes that they present themselves are so silly a lot of the time, with the whole jesters and DMT and machine elves. And they keep these similar archetypes and share them across the world. So people go, oh, we're all experiencing the same few things. It must be because we're connecting to a real place. Or if your demon's orchestrating a mass worldwide psyop and you're connected to a hive mind, you can easily make this thing happen and just keep the similar archetypes. So I just find that a pretty solid explanation.
Yeah.
And if you would like, I like to end this stuff off with some biblical lore that supports my theory more so than anything else that I can.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah. So if anybody's not aware, I'm going to discuss 1 Kings 22, the entire chapter, which is repeated in 2 Chronicles 18. And this story I've heard talked about by like Heiser, but not in the context that I'm going to cover. Now, no one else I've seen really talks about it. I find it pretty implicatory. Basically, the story is King Ahab, who's the northern king, the northern tribe, king of Israel, the 10 tribes, is king right now. And he's one of the more problematic, pagan-worshipping, evil kings that they've ever had. Very famous for that. And he is meeting with the southern tribe king, Jehoshaphat, who I think their kids are married, so they're like in-laws now, and they're hanging out. And Jehoshaphat's a man of God, but he's flawed and, you know, a little stupider probably. But they're hanging out. And Ahab's trying to get him to agree to bring his 2 tribes of Judah together with his northern tribe to go to war and pillage and plunder Ramoth Gilead, a nearby area. And Jehoshaphat's like, I don't know, man. Is Yahweh going to be cool with it? Is that something he would support? Let's ask the prophets. And Ahab's like, fine, whatever. I got you. I'll get the prophets. And he gets 400 prophets, but they're divinators. They're not chosen by God. They are seeking it via practices, and I think it's remote viewing from what it sounds like. if not remote viewing, it's downloaded information from entities. So either way, it's the same idea. I think it's a vision involved because of the way they describe it. So then they get this 400 prophets, and all 400 say the same thing basically. You're going to be successful. You're going to kick ass. You're going to do great. Go for it. And they all get visions of the victory. It insinuates. And then Ahab's like, see, I told you, bro, we got this. And then Jehoshaphat's like, I don't know. Is that, can we get like one true man of God for sure? Because he's questioning their legitimacy, I guess, because he can tell. They're all pagans, it looks like. And then he goes, fine, whatever. I'll get Micaiah. Micaiah's a Yahweh dude. Whatever, we'll get him. But I don't like this guy because he's prophesied bad fortune unto me in the past, which is not telling you what you want to hear, basically, which is probably the right guy. So a messenger goes and fetches Micaiah and tells him, hey, stick to the script, bro. We're trying to go to war here. Don't mess it up for us. So he's like, I'm going to tell him whatever God says to say. And I'm like, let's go. That's my boy. And Micaiah shows up, and Ahab's like, okay, prophesy fortune unto me, bro. And he says, sarcastically, telling him what he wanted to hear, what everybody else said. And he's just making fun of him. And then Ahab gets mad, knowing he's being sarcastic. He's like, hey, MFer, get it together. Tell me the truth. And he then instantly gets a vision, and he sees Yahweh, God, in his heavenly council communing with other angels or spirits, and they're discussing about Ahab. And they're saying, hey, Ahab's being a real problem for the Israelites right now, and we need to take care of him, but they're not going to go kill him or smite him because they work within their own laws with free will. But then one of the spirits goes, hey, what if I go and be a lying spirit down in the mouths of these 400 prophets they're gathering together? And then God's like, God knows what to do. He just is letting his creation play out and experience itself and, do their thing. So he's not doing everything, which I love. And God says, you're going to do a great job. Go do that right now. And then this angel goes down and does that. And he's basically telling Ahab this whole story. So then you would go, well, wait, this angel on God's side is deceiving people with a fake vision from God's orders? That's deceptive. That's not good. And I'm like, no, you dummy. You don't understand. First of all, he consented to be deceived when he activated these divinators to seek divination, which is a sin, which he says not to do because you will, get false visions. And then God also gives him the truth right afterwards. So he gave him a chance to hear the truth and see if his heart would go with his own desires or if he would go with the truth, which is very obvious at this point. So then Ahab slaps Micaiah and says, nah, you lying, get out of here. And he sends him to jail. And then he says, if you go to war, you're going to die. And guess what happened? They go to war soon. Jehoshaphat was convinced, and Ahab gets struck by a stray arrow, not aimed directly at him, but just a random stray arrow strikes him, and he dies hours later. And Jehoshaphat was getting ganged up on by these people on the other side, and he cries out to God and apologizes, and boom, they leave him alone for whatever reason. I think they were looking for Ahab anyway. But so the takeaway here is, if an angel can do that and psychically affect your data perfectly without error with 400 people and psychically control your vision to show you what you wanted to see anyway, they're giving you your own heart's desires, which you consented to. He did that, and if an angel can do that, these demons obviously seem to be doing the same stuff, but for deceptive reasons. He obviously left them with this ability so that they could use it as an ability to test the people of the world and test and it's playing into our own hearts and our consents, which we give when we desire these things. If we desire to see a past life memory and we go into a practice and we want to see it, we're going to get one, but it doesn't mean it's going to be true. It's playing into that deception that we agreed to and we desired because we decided to ignore God's word and do what we wanted and find our own special meaning and our own power via these practices. Is this making sense?
Yes. I mean, there's biblical proof that there are real prophecies and visions given to you by Yahweh, God Most High. And clearly in this case, there's false given to you by these angels, which would be kind of what you're talking about right now.
Exactly. And I'm going to read a couple verses here just so people see this is mentioned in multiple ways. And I'm shocked I never hear this talked about. I hear these verses maybe discussed, but not in the context I'm sharing. One is a good one, Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 3. And this is New King James Version. It says, if there arises among you a prophet or dreamer of dreams, and he gives you a sign or wonder, and the sign or wonder comes to pass, of which he spoke to you, saying, let us go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them. You shall not listen to the word of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you whether to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul. So he's telling you you're going to be tested with deceitful entities and situations, but if you don't play into it, if you avoid those phonies who are going against my word, then you won't have nothing to worry about. So that's where faith comes in. And he's basically saying if you're not going to have faith and you're going to entertain these alternative prophets who aren't of me, then you're entertaining deceit. And this is all a test to see where we choose truth and good, or deceit and lies, and stuff against God's word. So I think that's very important to note.
Amen. Do we choose truth or the world? And we know who the prince of this world is.
That's right. That's right.
Life is one huge test in that sense.
And they don't like to hear it.
They don't like to hear it, but the enemy is going to throw things at you. Just read the book of Job just to test you, and God's watching. He is seeing, who am I going to bring back into the family for eternity? And you nailed it right there, yeah.
Yeah, and being a Christian on earth does not mean it's all sunshine and rainbows after that. You're gonna be in warfare, and you're gonna be an enemy to the more powerful forces spiritually on this planet, and that's what being on the right side will do. So that people need to remember that. Not that you won't be blessed in many ways. Your peace that surpasses all understanding is one of my favorite things about this stuff, because I've had peace and no anxiety and depression and all these things for many years, ever since I've been a dedicated Christian. And even with all this sick stuff I'm absorbing constantly in my brain, I'm doing it to further the kingdom ultimately, and it has a purpose. So people never they don't like when I tell them Jesus is the way to peace, and they don't.
No, he is.
It's the way, man.
Well, I think you just nailed it. What happens when we love Jesus? What did Jesus say? He will ask the Father to send us a helper, the Spirit of truth. That's the Holy Spirit. And when we're operating in the Spirit, we convey the fruits of the Spirit. Right. And I think there's 8 or 9 of them: love, peace, joy, you name it. And especially during this time, and maybe this could be a segue into this prophecy, this manufacturing of it, it's going to get dark. We know this. And that's why it's so important for us to be operating in the Spirit, operating the fruits of the Spirit, so we don't go the way of the world. In fact, we're also this shining light in the middle of this crooked generation that Paul talks about. So I'm with you 100% that if you want to stay peaceful during this time, doesn't mean we're not going to get angry. I think Paul says, be mad, but do not sin, right? We're going to have these emotions. But ultimately, what's going to allow us to operate with a smile on our face while, everything's going on is that Holy Spirit.
Absolutely. And, you don't know till you know. And you got to be really, have full faith in the Lord, and that he will provide for you. And I've seen nothing but constant leveling up in my life, in my spiritual sense, and how I feel, and my path and my intuition. And people talk about their spiritual intuition all the time, but if they're not connected to God, that intuition is coming from the other side, and they are guiding them to where they want them to go. So I tell people that all the time, because people always brag about their intuition, and I'm not trying to be a big head about it, but my book and all that process of writing and reading, and now my podcasting, everything I'm trying to do is happening exactly the way I feel like I knew it would if I just followed every intuitive thought that God's been giving me along the way. And since I stay true and I pray every day and I make sure to keep in line with him and do my best to not sin, ever since I've been really dedicated to this, things have been working out very well. And so I think there's something to say about that, to be disciplined to stay with it, because people get into phases where they go in and out of dedication, and I'm not saying you can't do that or you'll be screwed, but the better you stick with it and talk to God every day, the better you'll be off.
Yeah, and that's how we get discernment. And unfortunately, I think that's why a lot of believers suffer from it. They might have more relationship with their theological beliefs or their particular religion,
or their church,
or their church, instead of God, instead of Jesus. And that's when the Holy Spirit helps us out. So as far as your discernment goes, what do you think is happening right now with this manufacturing of prophecy? Who's involved? Let's hear it for a little bit, and we go back and forth on this. I like this stuff.
I have quite complex views, as you should here, and I'm sure we align on quite a bit. I've been saying that I have a whole chapter at the end of my book as a bonus chapter. I've been saying that Trump is the Antichrist for quite a while, longer than most people. And I am now in the place where I am not questioning it completely because I still see so many parallels to where it's like it's hard to deny. But he might be a front for the real guy coming soon, and who I think would probably be like a Nephilim alien type or something of that nature. Maybe a Nordic or something. It might be Trump, and he's going to get some upgrade and possession by some entity or some spirit of Satan or something of that nature. I'm open to that, but it's one or the other. It's not anything else. It's either he's the guy paving the way, John the Baptist style, anti-John the Baptist, or he's going to be possessed fully and go on to some new level with some upgrade, which I think a lot of people are going to get some supernatural upgrades and psychic abilities once tribulation really begins. I think I sent you a video the other day. I don't know if you watched it from the Psy Guy thing, and that video put into perspective a lot of things for me. Some things were very new, and talked about how the days of Noah, when Jesus says the days of Noah will be like the coming of the day of his return. He basically explains it in a way that's way more literal than anybody could imagine. Like the Eden-like state, not in the perfection of it, but in the pre-flood world might return in the sense that the electric charge of our world might actually change after some solar event, which the New Age stuff pre-programs happening in Channel Door quite often. They pre-program this whole idea of a solar flare activating our psychic abilities in this mass scale thing all at once, and it being some big spiritual awakening 5D ascension thing. And they pre-program it so much that we might think, oh, is there some real truth to this, that in the tribulation this will be used as a deceptive force to allow entities to manifest, and that's the restrainer being removed, the veil ripping, and boom, like our psychic abilities are activated, but really it's maybe our consent to wanting them opens us up to demons merging, or maybe there is some latent thing being activated that is dead that entities can access that maybe was active before the flood with our Nephilim infused bloodlines. Maybe something like that is going to be activated. Who knows if it's entity facilitated fully or not, but it will be overpowered by them. I believe that sort of event might happen, and Jamie Walden talks about the technological aspect of some giant spiritual experience everybody's going to have, and I think he might be getting fed disinformation from his government sources, which I love him, and I think his analysis is great, but he has skiffs with government sources that I don't trust, and maybe they're saying this whole technological thing to dispel that disinformation to cover up for the spiritual event happening, or it's a combination of both, or it's one or the other. Either way, it seems to be pre-programming some major event where we're going to get some Marvel superheroes all over the place, and I think that it'll make the hatred of... I think a couple things are happening. I'm going to keep ranting if I can. I think, moving back a little bit, that Gog and Magog is likely going to happen soon, and they seem to be preparing for that, and the alliance is happening today. And I think that some people I trust say that that's going to be a longer event, and it's not going to be a quick thing. I've been leaning towards the quick view of it for a while, and I'm not totally sure now, but I like to think that it's going to be a quick event relatively where Turkey, Russia, Iran, these coalitions and more smaller countries are banding together to attack Israel, which we have a lot of that setting up right now, it seems. And that when they attack them, it says that God will, in Ezekiel 38, it says that God will save the Israelites. Is it going to be immediate or after some prolonged stuff? Hard to say. I lean towards the immediate. But it says that he will save them, and not because they deserve it. Not because they...
Definitely not.
Yeah, he's keeping his covenant promises, and he's also using it as a way to renew the hearts of a remnant who will then go, oh gosh, I need to bow down to my God because everything that the Bible says is coming true, and I've been wrong. Because, they're raised non-messianic. I feel bad for the generational curse of it aspect, but they are doing a lot of terrible things. And
without doubt.
But they also, the world, the Jews that control everything, also want you to hate them right now, and they're using alternative media that you can trust, quote unquote, to dispel all this stuff and make it seem like it's your idea. This whole Nazi resurgence stuff, I'm not aligned with. I see it more as a Nephilim problem than a directly Jew thing, and I think it's complex and mixed in with that. There's Edomite imposters, and there's a whole bunch of layers to this that we can go on forever about. But I think that when this attack happens, God will step in and supernaturally save them with, it says, hailstorms and earthquakes and mass confusion and chaos with the people invading, so much so that they start killing each other off in their coalition because it's so intense, however that may be. Now, when this happens, my whole prediction, that because I'm combining that Gog and Magog Ezekiel 38 prophecy with what I think is the reverse and New Age Gnostic version of the prophecy, which is pre-programmed with characters like Chris Bledsoe, and Whitley Schreiber and others, who they talk about, oh, when Iran and Israel go to war and start exchanging bombs, probably a limited nuclear exchange type situation, probably the more bigger bombs than what's been going on now, that they will show up and they will stop it from advancing any further. I think they're giving him this prophecy so that he can be a false prophet on a bigger scale like he already is after it happens, and people will apologize because they've been kind of shitting on him lately because it's timing. And now he's changed the date to October 7th, which, hey, that might be the date or near the date of what this is happening, the Gog and Magog stuff. I think it could easily be in that time period. And if it does, I think aliens, fake aliens, are going to have a good cop, bad cop scenario where the bad cop will take the blame for God saving Israel and take blame for the weather events and say, oh, it was just our advanced tech. You know, you can do weather modification here on Earth. What do you think us aliens have? And they did that and caused Israel to be saved. And what happens when that happens? They're going to say, oh my God, the bad aliens are using Jews as proxies and they've been invading our planet. This makes sense. They must be half alien. And I think they pre-programmed this because they just had a scientific article come out recently where they're saying, oh, we now know that a certain race on Earth has DNA from aliens. And they're pre-programming it in the news already.
RH negative. They have been.
They're going to say that. Yeah. No, they're going to say something like that, and it's going to be a Jew thing. And and then the whole world will hate them even more than they're already told to. And then you're going to say, wait a minute, does that mean Yahweh is the God of these people? And that means which, you know, obviously.
You nailed it right there.
They're going to say, oh, these aliens must worship Yahweh of the Bible. And that would mean anybody who stays loyal to Yahweh and to the Christian religion after this is going to be looked at as a real problem for everybody else who's now probably a little bit psychic, probably getting downloads of past life memories at mass scale, I bet, to give them context of their years in Atlantis. We have all this regression-based memory accessing of Atlantis memories and who we were before and how special we were. And people are going to get downloaded memories, maybe after the Mark of the Beast, maybe before, maybe during. I think that's correlated because that like acceptance of the Mark of the Beast is going to give you access to more of this and access to the hive mind, technologically speaking, but also etherically because you'll be merging with demons. I think this is all playing out.
Yeah, I mean, a couple points right there. I think it's important to remember that the Zionist agenda and the anti-Zionist agenda are kind of controlled by the same people.
Yep, there you go.
It's all intelligence slop.
Hitler was a Manchurian candidate, I absolutely believe, for many
reasons. And in order for them to manufacture this prophecy where the nations or the people turn on Israel, that means Zionism needs to die in the court of public opinion and be replaced with something else. So what do you see it replaced with? Well, you have this rise of the Vatican. All of a sudden you have Pope. And God, I heard someone call the Pope base, which is absolutely crazy. And you know we're cooked.
Well, you got some retards out there. What are you going to do?
Yeah, but I mean, just look at the anti-Zionists. Who do you have there? You have General Michael Flynn, who literally trained at Fort Bragg and ran the QAnon PSYOP. You have Candace Owens, who got fake married to Lord Farmer's allegedly gay son, who was no, seriously, I got to say this because this is how ridiculous this is. And people actually buy this shit, who was part of the Bullingdon Club, which is literally the British version of the Skull and Bones. So if I were to say to any of her followers, well, her husband's in Skull and Bones, they might go, oh, that's a problem. But no, he's in the Bullingdon Club, which is much older. And got the Rothschilds. You got Lords and all this stuff. Ties to Epstein. It's all there. And then you got, who else? Matt Walsh, I believe, was in that Call for Prayer or whatever.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Who works for the Daily Wire. The point is, all sides are controlled because in their
algorithmically promoted.
Yeah. And remember this also. I don't think that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic at all. Clearly, I have a show where I criticize Israel and the government as well. However, there's a famous quote within the journal of the founder of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, right? And you can look this up. It's harder to find now because they're scrubbing this stuff. But literally the quote is this. He says, the anti-Semite will be our greatest friend and the anti-Semitic nations will be our greatest ally. Right? Because they understand that the fulfillment of their interpretation of this prophecy requires all the Jews from throughout the world. And then there's this big war at the end of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So the reason I point this out is because I think it's important for us as believers, right? Us as Christians, us as truth tellers, to point out the truth But why do we point out the truth? Ultimately to lead people to Christ. Not because I expect to see any type of global change or we're going to overthrow this beast system that's coming. Guess what, guys?
Ain't prophesied.
It ain't prophesied. Nowhere in prophecy does it say that we get together and we, with Tucker Carlson leading the way to overthrow the dark hats. God, sounds like QAnon, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere does it say that. So I think we point out the fallacies of this to lead people to the truth, not because we expect the world or the global politics to change. Because we also got to remember, we think that whoever you think is at top, right? Whether you think it's the Jews, if you think it's the Jesuits, if you think it's that,
it's demons,
it's
to
demons,
secret societies, playing everybody like a fiddle.
Exactly, and you're never going to cut off that head. The only person that's going to cut off that head is Jesus.
That's right, baby. Now, another note to add, this is, I don't know if you know this, a lot of people don't, but so let's just say this is an accurate view of things with the whole Jews being seen as proxies for the bad guy aliens. Well, who's the good guy aliens? Well, it's been pre-programmed pretty heavily as the Nordics, who are sexy humans, us from the future, actually, so we're saving ourselves, and they're pre-programmed in SSP lore, secret space program lore, which is fake memory implantation. They're pre-programmed as, like, working with the Trump administration, which is why I've seen him as the Antichrist, a large reason for it, because they pre-programmed his name specifically as a white hat who's leading the charge for disclosure, which, by the way, look who's doing it. And also, they say that he's playing 5D chess, just like the QAnon stuff, and that his whole, which means, does that mean his relationship with Israel is actually him acting and keeping his enemies closer for one day he's going to turn on them, which it says, I think it says the Antichrist is going to, be a friend to Israel and then turn on them at some point, which is perfectly setting up that narrative if this is the case, which is why I lean towards the Antichrist thing for him. But I lean towards the other alternative.
Be careful. No,
I know. It's just so many weird layers. Now, here's another thing. The Nordic aliens are often seen by experiencers in these astral realms or abductions, which are partially astral sometimes. They will say they see swastika emblems on these very German-looking characters. Did you know that?
No.
They're setting up. They're not only super German and they're handsome and they're ancient, but they're also us from the future, and they're also highly advanced, spiritually advanced versions who are telepathic, and they're Nazis and they don't like the Jews.
Surprise! Hitler actually. and Hitler actually said, and I think all these world leaders all throughout history are just vessels for these demons that are carrying out their plans. I think all things start in the spiritual dimension. But what did Hitler say? He said, "My spirit will come back, and you will know that I'm right." I mean, was that him saying that? Who's speaking there? Because you see this rise of it. And no, I want to touch on that real quick, because you're right? Like, because there's that passage that says. No. But now this is where you're wrong. No. There's this passage that says that even possible, right? I'm butchering this. Even the elect will be deceived, right?
Yeah, I say that all the time.
And what's interesting is if you're looking for the Antichrist, which I think if you're listening to this podcast, we all are looking for it. We all have our own ideas and stuff like that. There's no denying that the script writer of this is making every possible play to make him look like the Antichrist.
That's why I'm questioning it now, because
exactly.
It's getting before it wasn't super obvious years ago, but now it's getting so obvious, and even Tucker said it, and I was like, no, I can't believe it. And now I'm like, that's why I'm like, after Tucker said it, I'm like, now I can't assume.
Yeah. And that's how you deceive the elect, right? So if everybody thinks Trump is the Antichrist, and then all of a sudden you get this supernatural being coming down with magic powers or whatever, because remember, Jesus coming back as that conquering lion. Yeah. We could definitely be deceived that way.
Exactly. And now I wouldn't fall for it at this point because I know all the layers now too much. I mean, I'm being big-headed about it, but my whole thing is reverse wargaming deceptions here. So let's hope I'm somewhat right on the ball. But I'm open to being wrong about the Trump thing. And I collected in my book tons of lore that like paints him as the guy scripturally and outside of that in occult reasons. And there's so many. But it's like if they've been engineering this fake Antichrist for so long which I thought it was so obvious years ago that I'm like, how are more people not saying this? So I thought I was ahead of the game. And now that it's becoming bigger and talked about, yes, we're closer to the final moments to where maybe it just doesn't matter. But also it's like now they kind of want us to believe it with their ops. And I'm like, this is now a weird sign. And then I think about, okay, well, he's also engineering the beast system in a way that, or engineering the, surveillance state right now and getting that set up. And it seems like that everybody is against the whole one world government thing that he seems to be secretly pushing towards, which then you would go, oh, he's the Antichrist. But it seems that the true Antichrist is going to tear down that system and expose the elites for who they are, and then bring in some false utopia, which still might be in a similar vein. But I think he might be the villain set up to be defeated by the true Antichrist, who will be, probably a lot more popular. Yeah, he was popular for quite a while, but now it's like nobody likes him anymore. And I'm like, is he gonna have a Phoenix rising from the ashes moment with some big 5D chess reveal, which is possible, or is it gonna be he's defeated by the true guy and he was the patsy? It's a very elaborate patsy, which
it is.
Sense. Yeah.
It is, and I think we're also going to see this coming on of this worldwide Gnosticism, which I think is the precursor for Mystery Babylon. And you're starting to see it now. And I think you pointed this out. I think that people, especially secular people, and maybe some new Christians that come to the faith, because you kind of see this being preached, they want to differentiate between the New and the Old Testament. They want to disconnect Jesus from God, Yahweh, because we associate God, Yahweh, with the actions of the Israeli government. And that's what you call Gnosticism, right? That's the demiurge. It's calling God the what's called evil guy. So I could totally see a scenario where you have this, and by the way, I think all countries are involved. I think if you're in the UN, you're involved. I think it's important to go back to Deuteronomy 32, when God created the nations and applied a lowercase God to rule over each principality from this spiritual realm or whatever. And we're just kind of watching the Game of Thrones right now.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to see a breaking of, and Stephen's on this all the time, of the New Testament from the Old Testament. And they're going to two different things. And then you're going to have the aliens come back and they're going to scapegoat the God of the Bible. They're going to say, hey, who's responsible for all this? Well,
why did he save the Jews? Why did he do that? They're evil.
Right. Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And who's responsible for that? God of the Old Testament, Bible. But I'm this new cosmic Christ. And here are all my friends with these ascended masters. Yeah. Look at these gifts that we have. And I can totally see how people will be deceived.
I think you're right. The Gnosticism thing is the coming fake religion that is going to be most pushed, as it's been pre-programmed for all of history. But some people are the New Age side, where they don't see it as a prison planet. They see the reincarnation thing as a more pleasant thing. And I think the New Age is like the setup, dummy to be saying, hey, look, you've been lied to. It's not all, rainbows and unicorns. It's actually a prison planet. You need to escape. And the only way to escape is developing psychic abilities and following our guidance. And I think the New Age is like the more, friendly version that will be shown as you're deceived, and everybody's going to be mass traumatized by this great revealing of the ultimate conspiracy. And a lot of people are pre-programmed for it and will accept it gladly. And I think that Gnosticism will be like the reveal, probably from these Nordic sources. It'll be aliens, man. That's the great deception ultimately, is aliens and whoever they bring with them, which are Nephilim, obviously. And I think it'll get pretty. I worry about the solar flare thing, and if there's truly some sort of mass activation of this psychic stuff, and this means intuition and knowing will be instantly downloaded to you from these sources much more easily. And once that veil is removed, the deception is going to be personal experiences. Jamie Walden talks about this. Personal experiences are hard to deny for people as deceptive, because they will feel it inside of them and just know, like after these drug trips. And I think that's a big part of this. And I think people protected by the Holy Spirit might not have to deal with that, or they will actually have discernment when it does happen. And I think it says a lot of Christians will be, will fall away in this time. And a lot of phonies will be revealed. The wheat will be separated from the chaff. I'm not a pre-trib rapture guy for sure. I think we're going to go through it. And I think we need to be like, megaphoning this concept out there more, because the deception will be personal to every individual, I think, very much so.
Yeah, it's definitely wild times that we're living in. And then to be talking about this stuff, because I've been kind of talking about this stuff for like 2 or 3 years,
But it's becoming more real every day. And
but actually, I've been doing specifically this manufacturing of prophecy, because like I said, I think, and this is just my own opinion, I think everything initiates in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And I know that these fallen gods, these B'nai Elohim, specifically the rebellious ones, they know at some point they're going to be released from the abyss, right? That's what Revelation tells us.
Maybe that's the solar flare event. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, so I think what's in their mind is they're like, well, if we can kind of manufacture this and try to follow it the best we know how through our interpretation of it, maybe maybe that will make God, send back Jesus, and then we can have this final battle over earth like we've been wanting. I mean,
Yeah, well, they can't defeat them, but they can do their best to take as many down with them as they can, and I'm sure
yeah,
they know that. But they have no other choice, and they're also used. They're evil forces that are ultimately all under God's control and used for good to test us. So
amen.
it's the most powerful and badass version of the universe we could possibly live in, while still being a test that is actually not supposed to be easy. And for some people it is. For some people it's awfully hard, but that is what refines your heart and soul is all these bad experiences. People are like, why is there evil? And I'm like, well, that's a dumb question. You have some growing up to do.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. Isn't that crazy that, and like I said, when I read the book of Job, like, just so much stuff started making sense to me, right?
Yeah.
And when you start realizing that the accuser or the devils or Satan, whatever you want to call them, this pantheon of fallen gods and their demonic offspring, in a weird way, they have a working relationship with God Most High.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Clearly. And they're here to be our accuser.
And that's not a bad thing, like people like
No.
to paint it as. It's the way it needs to be the world we live in. And we have free will, but whenever we go against God and we empty ourselves of Him and His presence in our life, we are opening ourselves up to the other side. There's no neutrality. There's no neutral spirits. There's good and evil, and you've got to pick one.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is right on. Remember, everything we're seeing in this earthly realm is a manifestation of the spiritual realm. And what's going on in the spiritual realm is a battle for our spirit, period, right?
Absolutely.
Between good forces and bad forces. Yahweh, God Most High, His Messiah versus bad forces. And God is watching everything we do, literally everything, right? And during this time, I think God is watching which one of my flock is going to proclaim my name, but do it in love. Do it in agape love, because I read a lot about the falling away of the church and through misteachers, but also talks about a hardening of the heart.
Yep.
And what I look on Instagram, and trust me, the world is going to do everything it can. Satan's going to do everything it can to make you harden your heart. And if you take a look at the world and what's going on, I can definitely understand how that is possible, because it's definitely groomed. I think it's just important that we understand what's going on, understand that there's some bigger picture behind it. And I think that ultimately will allow us to operate more freely in the spirit and still have love in our heart while we are telling the truth.
Amen, brother. I'm all about it.
Yes. Anything else you want to say? We're pulling up in about 2.5 hours. Any closing statements, anything? I really enjoyed this. I think the people who tuned in really enjoyed this. If you did, follow him. Where can they follow you?
Oh, yeah. At my username on X is Sethlehem, Bethlehem with a Seth, and on Instagram, it's the same thing with an underscore at the end, Sethlehem underscore. And like I said, Linktree is in my bio. Go to that Linktree to find all the sources to my book, to my audiobook, to my podcast appearances are linked there. My YouTube page with everything on it. It's all there. And yeah, I would love to go on any and all podcasts. Hook me up with whoever you guys know. Hit me up. I have 3 parts of material ready to go. This one plus a second one, if we did, would be on holistic healing comparisons and how it adds to the vision theory, as well as past life issues with the whole memory access. And then part 3 would be a total reincarnation debunk, which I've never seen anybody do in this style with this context, and I have a lot of evidence to supply. So I would love to do that in some time in the distant future or near, as whenever you want, brother. But yeah, love you guys. Thanks for having me on. I love this stuff.
Hey, man, I had a great time talking. And to all the listeners that came in here, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys make it so much more fun to talk about this stuff when there's people paying attention, whether we're right or wrong. Thank you. If you made any donation today, much appreciated. And I got some new viewers because some people were grateful enough to repost this. If you ever want to hear someone talk about the manufacturing of prophecy via biblical world lens, or if you want to hear me go nuts on the military, on the influencer industrial complex, I host a podcast twice a week on YouTube, sometimes 3 times a week. I'll have another guest. It's at, let me pull that up real quick just so the people can see, because it's all one word. 1 second. YouTube. 1 minute. I'm still learning how to use this crap. Well, anyways. Whatever. View channel. There we go. I guess it's not popping up. Oh, no, that's you. Remove. Whatever. Find me on YouTube. There's a link in my bio, whether you're watching from Instagram or X. And we go into the military, the influencer industrial complex. We pull no punches. I think they're all co-opted. And you're never wrong. But once again, hey, Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show. Brother. You've definitely enlightened the audience. You've enlightened me. You have given me things. Oh, actually, you're right. Right. Well, you're lucky. You're lucky I didn't say you illuminated me, because then that would have been suspect.
Slapped you through the computer, man. That would have been bad.
Oh man, I'll tell you. One time I was doing a live, and I wasn't even thinking. I was just thinking time difference, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, the live, and I posted about it. And I was like, the live's going on at 3:30, and my buddy hit me up. I was like, bro, what are you doing? 3:30? No, I was like 33. So.
Got to be careful on these streets.
You got to be careful. They have to call us out.
Bad corners out there.
But thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. Go check him out, and God bless everybody who's watching. I hope God protects you and there's miracles in your life. There you go. There's his book. I'm going to pull this up. This is his website, and enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Of course.